I drove my rusty pickup to the local game store door. Starfield gleamed upon the shelf, couldn't wait no more. Todd Howard spun his stories of galaxies afar, but when I fired up that game, I didn't get too far. Oh, Todd, you sold me stardust, but gave me empty skies. Promised me the universe with all your alibis. I fell for all your stories, like I always do. Starfield left me wishing for a game that's true. They boasted endless planets, each one unique and new. But after planet number 3, I'd seen a deja vu. The critics didn't love it, gave it mediocre scores. Just another space misfire echoed across the boards. Oh, Todd, you sold me stardust, but gave me empty skies. Promised me the universe with all your alibis. I fell for all your stories, like I always do. Starfield left me wishing for a game that's true. I searched for epic battles, but the AI wouldn't fight. Characters were wooden and the dialogue was trite. Todd promised me the cosmos, but left me in the dust. Now I'm trading in this game, it's betrayed my trust. Oh, Todd, you weaved a fable of worlds beyond compare, but all I got were glitches and load screens everywhere. Still somehow I'm considering when the next game's not, 'cause hope's a stubborn thing, and I'll give it one more try. Oh, Todd, you sold me stardust, but gave me empty skies. Promised me the universe with all your alibis. I fell for all your stories, like I'll always do. Starfield left me wishing for a game that's true. Oh, Todd, you sold me stardust, but gave me empty skies. Promised me the universe with all your alibis. I fell for all your stories, like I always do. Starfield left me wishing for a game that's true. So you wanna make a Lego game using some big property.
I'm vibing!
Already did Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Lord of the Rings. Well, I think there's still one option that you've yet to explore. It's the series about a girl and her robotic dinosaurs. Now I know what you're all thinking, hey, isn't this a bit of a stretch? Horizon's fan base has been shrinking. It might be pretty, but there's always a catch. I've only met one person in my whole damn life who had an insatiable Horizon appetite. Everybody else doesn't care that much, but Herman Hulse doesn't really give a fuck. So here you go, world, it's Horizon again. If you got money, it's time to spend. It's got multiplayer, find a friend. Ooh, open up your mouth, girl, let me pour some Horizon in. It's sweet like honey, so give us all your money. Oh wait, oh fuck, no one's buying the game. I thought Horizon was as cool as Star Wars. I guess it turns out it's just kinda lame.
I'm vibing!
Holy crap, oh no, why doesn't anybody care? Horizon is just as cool as all those other Lego games. Even though the evidence makes it seem like it's irrelevant, Lego Horizon flopped. I'm not sure why they bothered trying. All of its fans must have been lying. Lego Horizon flopped, Horizon. Guess Sony is gonna have to try again. Skeep-a-doop-bop-boop, Deepa deepa doo-da, robo-dino skip-bop, skip-bop. Deepa 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 boo-bop, going till the doo-da, beep-bop, a-noo-ta. Horizon should never had a Lego game. Whoever greenlit that must have been fucking insane. Lego Horizon flopped. I'm not sure why they bothered trying. All of its fans must have been lying. Lego Horizon flopped. Horizon. Guess Sony is gonna have to try again. Sorry Herman Hulst. Guess you didn't make a new Star Wars after all. Sorry Herman Hulst. Just another day of ya dropping the ball.
Welcome everybody. Oh, Lego Horizon. What a weird game. How is everybody? Everybody doing good? Hopefully you are. I haven't actually checked on Lego Horizon. Can't be good, right? It's a game that definitely is gonna do better on console and like Switch than anywhere else. Horizon Adventures. Yeah. I think it's more the reviews are rough. I think that's the big thing. Because people bought it and tried to play it, but it's just like really short. When I found out they were making a Lego Horizon game, I immediately pre-ordered it with the expansiveness of Zero Dawn and the story taking you all across the map. I was hoping it would be like a Lego Lord of the Rings, where you can explore the entirety of the world in between levels with varied weapons for each character's hidden secrets, side quests, collectibles, and more. However, this game is nothing like that. In fact, I would argue this is only a Lego game in the sense that the graphics are Lego bricks, because the actual gameplay lacks almost every staple of Lego games. This is the big thing. It wasn't made by TT, which is like the company that has made all of the Lego games you probably recognize, like all of the big Lego ones. So it's a different studio. It's a different thing entirely. And so I can understand why people were maybe surprised, because they were expecting that, and what they got instead was a $60 game that's like 5-ish hours long probably, and is like really repetitive. So I mean, it's also a huge step down from the Lego Skywalker Saga, because that was so much better. Like that was really good. It's already $40 in Asian countries. Really? Oh, I mean, it's we meme on Jor and like the Horizon fans a lot, because I don't think the games are bad. I just think they're not amazing. Like I don't think they're masterpieces. I think most of them are like B- games or C+. Like the first game maybe C+, B-. Second game probably more like a B-. They're not bad. It's just they're not masterpieces, but like PlayStation is so focused on trying to make it the next big thing that they treat it like it's a masterpiece, even though I don't think that's been earned. And there's something so deeply cringy to me about trying to make a franchise a thing when people just aren't connecting with it. It's like trying to make Concord into this big like Star Wars sized franchise that has a secret level episode and all this stuff. Like it's not been earned yet. You don't get to just assert that everybody loves this, right? You know, with people like, oh no, it's everybody loves this now. You guys love this franchise. You love it now. It doesn't work that way. I think if they were like a little bit slower, maybe more intentional and maybe just a little calmer with how they approached it, they could get Horizon to that point where it is beloved in that same way as like The Last of Us, where it's on that crazy level of notoriety and popularity. But they just tried to skip over that. And maybe part of it is that like Herman Hulst is looking at it and he's like, he comes from Guerrilla Games. So he's like, oh, well, you know what? Horizon has had 2 games. I think they're great. Last of Us, they had 2 games. And I think they're good. So why can't Horizon be treated the same way as The Last of Us? It's because like you don't get to decide what fans love. You know, you just don't get to. It doesn't work that way. Man. You just don't get to. Intergalactic Story League looks like it's going to be so mediocre. What's your opinion? I'm pretty sure that was fake. There were other things in that leak that were like hilariously stupid, where they were saying that, oh, one of my sources just sent this because it was sent out to a private journalist. I think they said Discord group or email chain or something for all gaming journalists to coordinate coverage. And it's like, that doesn't happen. That's not a thing. It's like some person's idea of a grand conspiracy of game journalists coordinating on reviews and coordinating on messaging for games. And so it's like it was like gaming QAnon. It's like Game-anon. It was just nonsensical. But as for like the general vibes of the story, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's similar, just because I think there's only so much you can do when your protagonist is a bounty hunter looking for their old crew on a planet that's mysterious and has had nobody escape it for centuries. Like, there's only so many plot lines you could go with. They've already said that they are looking at doing or exploring a fictitious religion and like belief systems and cults. I wouldn't be surprised if the entire game is an allegory for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Knowing Neil Druckmann, I think that's probably going to be most of what the story is. So I just think it's pretty easy to figure out what they're going to do. But that leak specifically, I think, was fake. Yeah, the leak also name dropped Jason Schreier for some reason. Yeah, a lot of those like Game-anon people, they loathe Jason Schreier. And I think there's probably like a couple reasons. For one, he leaks a lot of stuff. So I think that can be part of it. He's also a very progressive individual, and he's taken a stance against some of the like, I don't know, like super anti-woke stuff. So I think that he's just become a very visible target for them. But yeah, some of those people, they hate Jason Schreier for whatever reason. So apparently the game science dev crying was fake. I saw that somebody came back and said I was sitting close to them too, and they didn't cry. So now it's literally he said, she said. Some people are saying they weren't crying when they lost Game of the Year. Alana's saying she saw them and saw them crying. Like, somebody's right, or maybe the answer is somewhere in the middle. Maybe they weren't crying, maybe they were sniffling. I don't know, but I like, it's literally he said, she said. And Alana is not the type of person, as far as I'm aware, to make stuff up for clicks. Like, Alana's doing just fine. They sat her in the front row at the Game Awards next to like the most powerful executives in gaming. She has like the connections they need that she needs. So I don't think she needs to fake stuff. And that would be a really stupid thing to fake, I think it's like when I told you guys the story when I was at the Game Awards and I was sitting next to the Batman Arkham devs, the Arkham Shadows devs, the VR game. And they were like a row or two in front of me to the right. And I told you guys the story how Jeff Keighley announces like a new game in the Arkham franchise. And they show the logo of the Arkham thing and Batman and everything. And everybody in the audience, oh. And then it says MetaQuest. And the entire auditorium, thousands of people, let out a collective, oh, all at the same time. And you could see those devs go from to just sinking into their seats. And I felt really bad for them. It was a little funny. But like, I felt really bad for them. But somebody could be sitting nearby and say, no, they didn't do that. They just sat there. They didn't get like weirded out or feel awkward about it. But like, from where I was sitting, what I saw, it was an understandable reaction, I think. So either way, it's just he said, she said stuff. I think the sentiment is certainly accurate given what the game director stated on social media after the fact, on like Weibo. So I think more than likely there were emotions when they lost, But as for whether, like, I don't think anybody is just straight up lying. I think it's just two different perspectives on the same event. It's why eyewitnesses are the most useless form of evidence in criminal investigations, because one person's perspective could be totally different even though they watched the exact same thing happen, you know? Tried the Helldivers 2 update yet, Luke? No, I heard that already, like, the contract or the mission was completed. Did they like restart it? Did they kick it off? I don't know. Translation may be wrong. Oh, of the Weibo thing? Yeah, I think the translation was that some journalists and articles were using was pretty... I don't think it was very generous, maybe. I don't know. Like, they translated it and it came off as the game director saying, "We came here for nothing," which of course sounds super spoiled and bratty. But I think the actual translation was like, "We came here and we didn't get the award we wanted." I think that's the sentiment that they were trying to communicate when you read the whole message. So that's why I didn't go with those articles, because I think that those were relying too much on a bad translation. Either way, like I said in the clip we did on it, if you worked for years and years and years and you had basically the entire game's media infrastructure coming down on you, trying to destroy your game and your company, and then you still find success and you pop off, like, I can understand why they would have high emotions at that Game Awards show. So I didn't think it was like this big story of like, look how entitled they were. I was like, no, it was a long journey to get there, and they just came ever so short on the big award. But I think that's fine. Blake, thank you for that one. Killzone crossover for Helldivers dropped. Yeah, who would have thought that's where we're getting Killzone? Lord knows we're not getting it from Gorilla, but yeah, there you go. Lonely Vades, thank you for that too. Have you seen the Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra news? No, there's news about it. I was busy getting ticked off that MrBeast rented out the pyramids. Which, yeah, if you're like, what? Apparently, MrBeast has secured rights to rent out the Great Pyramids at Giza for 100 hours, and he's gonna film videos in it and like sleep inside the pyramids or whatever. I think this is exactly everything that's wrong with modern antiquity in Egypt. They're willing to do stuff like this, but there have been archaeologists and architects and stuff that have wanted to do research within the pyramids, because there's like entire cavities in the pyramids that are, as of right now, unexplored. And there's archaeologists that want to do research on it, but they're not granted access because they're from like France, or because they don't have the money for the permits and Egypt doesn't want to foot the bill to let them in there. But MrBeast can go in there and do it. So hopefully he does something like a big grant for further research on the pyramids or something, but I think that's probably unlikely. Anyway, Rise of Hydra, you said there was an update or something? Is this just it? I mean, I think all of this was already known. Except like specifics over Wakanda and stuff, but that was kind of inferred. Is that what you're referring to? They say, she says she wants it to be a shared living room experience, which to me just makes it sound like an interactive movie. That's all it sounds like to me. Oh, it's a game that you play and everybody sitting on the couch in the room can have the same level of enjoyment as the player. Okay, so it's probably a movie. Like I said when this was announced, my guess is this is going to be an Order 1886 kind of thing. It's going to be like 4 hours long, and it's mostly going to be cutscenes, and the gameplay is going to be pretty lacking. But you know, that's not. There's a place for that. There's a place for that kind of thing, just so long as it's priced appropriately. But we'll see. More than anything, I think it's just being used as like a showcase game and project, almost like a tech demo for Unreal Engine. I think that's mostly what this is intended to be. If it ends up being a 20-hour epic, like action adventure game, I'm here for it. Don't get me wrong, but I think there's a reason they haven't really shown gameplay. They've just shown cutscenes so far. And I think it's coming next year. So yeah, it's coming next year. So we should see something soon, you would think. I'm surprised we didn't see anything more recently, but The Order 1943. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Blake, thank you for the 5. It's not he said, she said. You can literally see them in a shot with Astrobot 1 and they were fine. There's posts. Their post was also again mistranslated too. Yeah, the post, like I said, the Weibo.com or whatever social media site that is, that the CEO, I think it was the CEO, posted to, was, in my opinion, mistranslated. I don't speak the language, so obviously I don't know one-to-one, but it seemed people were very intentionally choosing bits of the translation from Google Translate to run with, even though they were probably not very accurate. It didn't make sense in the context of the whole post. As for the video, maybe I misunderstood Alana. My understanding was Alana was saying it was after, like, they announced the winner of Game of the Year, Astrobot's devs go up there. Yeah, you can see them in the background of the shot. I understood Alana was saying that it was like in the 5 to 10 minutes after that, when the show ends, everybody's getting up, that's when she spotted the high emotions. Maybe I misunderstood that, but I don't know. If she was saying like as they announced the award, then they're crying, then yeah, like you can see them on camera. But I at least understood what she was saying as it was in the like period after the award when the show's ending that she saw it. But I don't know. Clem, thank you for the 5. You can see the GS team not crying the second clip of Astrobot. Oh, I should have read this one before I went into that. They're in the background looking a little grumpy, but the CEO is smiling and clapping. Yeah, like I said, I maybe I misunderstood Alana. If she was saying that it happened right as all of that kicked off, then yeah, that doesn't seem to be the case. But I understood it to be that she was saying it was after. But again, maybe that's just me. Real quick, thank you, House of Haas. Thank you also for the sub, 3 months. Ooh, baby. Ignis Infernum. Thank you also for subbing with Prime over on Twitch. Love you guys so much. That's awesome. Is that even legally allowed in Egypt? Researchers won't bring the eyes of millions of kids. I guess priorities are funny these days. And I'm sure he paid them a lot. Like the unfortunate reality is that a lot of like those sites, especially in the Middle East, a lot of those sites are run by fairly corrupt antiquity departments within the government, and it is pay to play. Like if you have the money to donate this grant to this person's organization or whatever, then you get access to the site. And if you don't, you don't. Like it's really unfortunate, but that's a big thing. The other thing is that in Egypt specifically, there has been for a long time a sort of hard on for big media and exposure through media. If you've watched any ancient Egyptian documentaries, you know this guy, Dr. Zahi Hawass. This is the guy I've told you guys about before on stream because he famously banned Beyonce from the pyramid complex because her photographer was being disrespectful. So he banned her for life from the pyramid complex. What kind of baller dude bans Beyonce from the pyramids? Like how based is that? It's pretty baller. But one of the things with him is that he blew up and became super famous because he would wear the sort of Indiana Jones fedora look. And then he also would go and did a ton of TV with National Geographic and Discovery Channel and History Channel and all that. So he got Egypt exposed to the world. I grew up watching documentaries and stuff that he starred in. I actually met him relatively recently, like a year or two ago. I have a book signed by him. I think it's upstairs. I don't think I have it down here. Yeah, I don't have it down here. But yeah, he's like somebody I've watched for a long, long time. He went on a speaking tour and came to Denver, and I met him. And yeah, it was this little thing. An evening with Dr. Zahi Hawass. So I went to that little speaking engagement. But as part of it, though, one of the interesting things is that he's always kind of had this approach where if you're going to bring exposure, He will bend the rules for you unless you're Beyonce. But part of that also, he does not seem to be a person who's that... There's no other way to say it. He's had a series of pretty sizable run-ins with women. There was a female archaeologist from England. She put forward a few theories he didn't like, and so he banned her from the country permanently. Like, imagine being an Egyptologist and then you get banned from Egypt because he doesn't like some of the stuff you're putting out. Like, he, for example, he has very specific theories about the pyramids, some ideas of how the pyramids were put together, and if you come forward and you put together other stuff, he doesn't play with that. Like, there's a modern theory from a French archaeologist that the pyramids were put together using internal tunnels and internal ramps that were built sort of as part of the structure of the pyramid, and some of that still remains inside the pyramid, which is why there's some vaults and gaps in them. And that, I think no, it wasn't Petrie. It was a French architect, but he also like banned those guys. So the point is, it's dysfunctional unless you're MrBeast. Yeah. How do you just ban someone from the country? Well, so to be clear, they can ban you from the country, and or they can just ban you from the archaeological sites that the Supreme Council of Antiquity runs. And if you're an Egyptologist, being banned from archaeological sites is tantamount to being banned from the country. Because, like, why would you go to Egypt to just hang out in Cairo when you just want to be researching the sites? So, yeah. Talking about the air vents. No, those air vents, those little bitty, I guess, yeah, you could just call them vents. Those little bitty passageways that tunnel all the way to the outside of the pyramid. Those things they've researched and looked at for a long time. But these are specifically, yeah, they also call them star shafts. They're these little bitty holes that are in the pyramid that are really, really weird, but they just vent straight out. It's really bizarre, but they, like, these are well known, but there are entire, like, gaps within the pyramid. Like, there's a void above the entrance, like right here, that nobody knows anything about. They did it with some sort of bizarre, like, telemetry data, and then also analyzing the gravitational force or whatever. I have no idea how they do it, but they found that there's a void in the pyramid there, so a big empty space inside, and they don't know why. They don't know what it is. It shouldn't be there because it's a pyramid, and you don't want any voids in that because it's very, very, there's a lot of weight coming down on top of that. You don't want any structural weakness in there, but there is a void there, and nobody knows why. But yeah, no, we don't need to give researchers access. Let's just let MrBeast film a video. Maybe we'll just do that. Yeah, that's fine. I hope it's that MrBeast gave them money that they're going to use for further research. I hope that's what it is. If that's the case, welcome, MrBeast. Do 15 videos there. But if it is just like literally he's going to film, we're going to see how long we can stay in the pyramid before we go crazy. And for each block of limestone you eat, you win $100,000. Let's go. If it's that kind of thing, I'm going to be upset. Banning people because they question you is insane. I mean, there is a mainstream archaeological perspective. And if you come in and you really push it, that's seen as unacceptable. Like, the biggest thing is machining of like granite. Granite is extremely hard. You can't use copper chisels on it. You need to use copper mixed with specific types of sand, and it takes weeks or months to cut through blocks like that. Fine machining of Egyptian statues and stuff that, according to the archaeological record, like, they should not have had tools that could do that. Some of these archaeologists are saying is like, to do something on this scale, they would need to have more tools than just copper chisels and then slave labor. Like, they needed a lot more than that. And that's something that is like heretical. You can't really say that. funnily enough. There was one. Yeah, this lady. There was one lady who got into trouble, rightly so. This lady, Joanne Fletcher. She had a whole documentary series on the BBC where she claimed to have found the body of Nefertiti. Wow. Big deal, right? How did you find the body of Nefertiti? Nefertiti being the famous, it's actually really funny that they think this is Nefertiti, but this famous bust that's attributed to Nefertiti, there's a pretty compelling argument that it's actually fake, and that also, even if it is real, it might not be Nefertiti, because there are no inscriptions on it. There's nothing saying it's Nefertiti. It's just inferred from where it was and the headdress that it was Nefertiti. But anyway, it might just be some lady, which is kind of funny. But this lady claimed to have found the body of Nefertiti. And she had this mummy that she was looking at. She did CAT scans and everything. She did this whole documentary. And how she said it was Nefertiti was that the body of the mummy had the arms in a position kind of like this, crossed over in a regal position. The arms are only going to be like this if they are royalty. Problem was, the arm was snapped off over the years. When the grave robbers went in there, they pulled it apart and pulled off the wrappings, and they ripped off one of the arms of the mummy and like threw it into the corner of the room while they were looking for treasures and necklaces and things wrapped up with the body. And so the arm was separated, but she said, I found the arm and I put it together in the CT scan machine, and we confirmed that this is the same arm, meaning that it was angled like royalty, and that means this could have only been the body of Nefertiti. And yes, she does sound like that. I'm not just making that up. What's the problem? The arm she found went up to like the mid bicep. Okay, like it was folded like this, but it was snapped off at like mid bicep. The body she was trying to attach it to still had its elbow. Its arm was missing from here. So unless this woman had an extra joint in her arm, like 2 elbows, the arm did not belong to that mummy, but she said it did. And she pretty heavily like obfuscated all this stuff to make it seem like it was one and the same. And so naturally, when Zahi Hawass heard about this, he was not happy, especially because he was featured in that documentary for like 10 minutes, for like a 10-minute interview. They put him in there, and to be associated with what was pretty clearly just fake news. It was just made up, and she knew it was fake. He was not happy. So she got banned. And like he tried to basically, and I think he did succeed. He just destroyed her career, and I think rightly so, because it was like, there is no oops. It's like, no, she didn't have 2 elbows. She knew what she was doing. You know, it was pretty bad. Yeah, he banned her ass. So there's all sorts of crap like that in the history of Egyptology, though. It really will blow your mind when you start to dig into it. But yeah, it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. Funnily enough, do you know where this bust of Nefertiti is? Do you know where it's housed right now? What's like a random place for a bust of an Egyptian queen to be? Yeah, Casa del Crescent knows, yeah. It's in Berlin. It's in a museum in Berlin. That's what it looks like. And they've tried to like petition it to get sent back to Egypt or whatever. Egypt just opened like a little less than a decade ago, the Ruby Museum, which is like a huge new museum for all their stuff. But there are many, many Egyptian artifacts scattered all over the world. It's pretty crazy. But anyway. So yeah, we'll see what MrBeast does with that. Indy didn't stop him. No, Indy probably took it and gave it to the gave it to the Germans, knowing him. Yeah, Indiana Jones is not one of those guys who I think he'd be canceled today if he were doing what he did in the movies. Oh man. Okay. Yeah, Indy's just trying to break it to find a key for something. Yeah, that's more Indy speed. Okay, let me catch up on these real quick. Oh yeah, take banning people because they question you is insane. Yeah, some of the bans totally justified. Others are questionable, and then some of them are not like direct bans, but because you have to get permits to go to archaeological sites, they can ban you by proxy basically. So if they don't like what you're pushing, or if they don't like your theories or whatever, maybe they are insane, or maybe there's a hint of truth to them. But if they don't like you, they'll just stop giving you permits. And so they basically ban you because you can't do any work there. They're like, yeah, you can go as a tourist, but if we catch you doing anything archaeological, you're kicked out, fined, whatever. So, yeah, it's the whole Egyptian archaeological scene is pretty scummy, I think. I'm playing Lost Judgment by RGG, and it's so good. Didn't play the Judgment franchise yet because of SkillUp's negative review. Everyone was criticizing him back then. Now I get why. Rare SkillUp fumble. Yeah, Samaya, the Lost Judgment, it's good. It's good. I got it. I think it was on the Steam Deck. It actually played very well there. So, yeah, those are Lost Judgment specifically is really good. Rambling Entertain, thank you for the 5 as well. Obsidian will drop 4 games with the Outer Worlds 2 in one gen. I want to know what magic do they use and how Bethesda can get it. It really is just limited scope and tighter budgets. They don't try to make massive, gigantic AAA games. And it is affecting their Metacritic scores, sure, but it also allows them to put out a lot faster. Instead of trying to do every game on the scale of like just making a new Skyrim every time they do anything. You know, something of that scale. They're like, hey, we're not going to go AAA, we're going to go AA size, and we can get more games out and iterate faster, and you know, it works much better. So I think that's the big key. Whereas a lot of other studios right now, they just, again, it's in that Marvel era where it was just assumed if you spent more money, you would make more money. And nowadays that's just not true anymore. You can spend a lot more money, and to a certain extent, some players might even react more negatively if they know how much money you spent on it and they don't feel like it's worth that, which is kind of crazy. Oren, thank you for that one. I hope you're enjoying the stream. Luke, question, what camera model are you using right now? This is a Sony FX30. Let me make sure that's the right one. I'm pretty sure. Because there's the Sony FX30 and there's the Sony FX3. The FX30 has an APS-C image sensor, so it's a smaller sensor, meaning it's going to crop whatever lenses you're using, so you have to get special lenses and gotta factor that in. But if you use the Sony FX3, the Sony FX3 has a full frame, but it's also got a full price tag, so it's pricey. 99% of people don't need this. I mean, this, even for me, I do this for a living, I thought this was overkill. But the Sony FX30, chef's kiss, very good. Yeah, take, okay, maybe some people should be yeah, I think in some cases it's justified. Cog, thank you for the 5. Have you been enjoying Marvel Rivals? I feel like for a free game, they've done really well and are on a great track. Yeah, I played it with my brothers last night, and I mean, we had a great time. I think it's fast paced. It definitely, some of the balance isn't quite there, but that's also part of where the fun is. Like the idea that some combos of characters are just really, really powerful. I can understand maybe if you're trying to grind out ranked, it can get frustrating, but I also like that it's not been like balanced to the point where every character plays exactly the same. You know, that's one of those problems with like with freaking Overwatch or even certain games like Valorant and stuff. They'll rebalance them to try and get them so precisely balanced so everything is perfectly fair that the characters start to lose a lot of what makes them fun, in my opinion. And it's just frustrating, you know? Where's the lens? Oh, on high-end cameras and stuff, there are no lenses in the box. No. They know if you're spending $3,800 on a camera, like you have the lens you want to use. So they don't include it. It's the same thing with like high-end cars. Like I think the top of the line Porsche car, like the 911, it doesn't by default come with a stereo. Like you have to add that on. You have to add in a sound system, and it's like a separate ticket item. It's not bundled in, which some people is like insane. It's Porsche. I like saying it Porsche because then you have to listen to me say Porsche for longer. Porsche. Does it come with a steering wheel? Oh, man. It doesn't come with tires. Was it BMW who's trying to sell like a subscription service for seat warmers? Or was that something they just threw out? I remember seeing one car company was thinking of selling subscription models for like seat warmers, for I know Tesla does, they have speed like acceleration boosts. So you can pay more for like $2,000. You can upgrade to make it like accelerate faster because they just like overclock it basically. A lot of companies do that kind of thing. That was BMW. Okay, I'm not crazy. Yeah. Oh, it's already happening? Oh, really? That's funny. Such a useless feature in the USA. Honestly, like I understand wanting to have a powerful car that can like go fast or like, you know, pull a big trailer or something if you're driving a truck. But people being like, I want a car that can go 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds versus 3.5. I'm like, when will you ever use that? Except for maybe when you're going and like turning onto the highway or something. Like I can never think of a time when you would actually use that without getting ticketed. Yeah, track days. Yeah, if you're somebody that can take it to a track, cool. And I guess if you can afford a car that's able to do that, you probably can do that. But still, it's just a funny thing. But then again, I'm sure a lot of people are like, why do you need a graphics card that can play 4K, 120 frames, whatever? Like, I get it. Is that a GMT? No, this is just a simple Seiko. Simple Seiko. Gets the job done. It's a solar. It's very accurate. I feel like it looks decent without costing $15,000. We'll get there though. Fair point then, my cynical ass can't see past that. That's funny. Luke, time to flex your stuff. Go. I don't really have a lot of, I mean, I have this stuff to flex, I guess, but I don't tend to, I don't do that XQC thing. Like, what did XQC do? He was wearing like a Richard Mille. XQC. Richard Mille. Yeah, this. Real quick, I want you guys to guess how much this watch costs. Okay? The watch he's wearing. What do you think this watch costs? $68.99. These Richard Mille watches are like freakishly expensive. Okay, does he say how much he paid for it? I love that the transcript is trying to translate XQC. This is what it says. He says, the gauge is attacking. We need all available B for headquarters. I'll show you close. And I don't want to flex. It just, I'm really happy with it. It's most happy in long time. I finally get my welcome to the jungle after 38 months. Oh man, I can't welcome to the junk law. Who I might cry a little. Bit gas vending machine ass watch. Man, I got it for me. Enough for you. Come on, bro. Welcome. That's an XQC clip right there. That's.
I'll show you up close and Amazon. I don't want to flex. It just I'm very happy with it. It's the most happy in a long time, man.
So that, depending on which specific thing it is, this is like a $250,000 watch. That probably costs more than your house. I'm gonna be real. I don't get the Richard Mille thing. I said it. I like watches. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. I understand some people love it. I'm good. I'm good. Looks like a Looney Tunes watch. Honestly, like some of the watches some people wear, like there are a lot of rappers and like NFL players and NBA players who go down to is it 6th Street, New York? I forget where it is, but there's a whole watch district, basically a jewelry district that sells watches in New York City. And they'll go down there, and when some of those guys find out that these are NFL players or are NBA players, maybe have more dollars than cents, they'll sell them fake watches. And it's like hilarious how stupid some of these fakes are, but it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. Yeah, I think if I were going to do one, the James Cameron Deep Sea. It's rated to go down to like the bottom of the ocean. It's got this really cool gradient dial. They're pretty Gucci. And I mean, it's freaking tough as nails, but it's also freaking gigantic. This guy's got a tiny wrist though. Jesus. Very petite. Wow. On like a normal person's wrist, it looks like a standard watch, but that dude's wrist is tiny, bro. Dude's made of twigs. That's funny. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about this thing. Let's do this. Oh yeah, the reversos are cool too. Lara Nord, thank you for the 5. Mark Sony just dropped a new video on PlayStation channel talking about the PS5 Pro. I saw that in the recommended feed. Is that worth us watching, do you think? Is there enough there? Because I was like, maybe it's good, but I don't know if it's just going to be like, this technology is some of the most amazing we've ever done, and we'd like to share more of it with you today. Here you can see our resolutions have been increased, and the performance of our capture is all the more impressive. If it's that, you know, I'm good. Have you watched Concord's secret level episode? It was surprisingly good. They could have probably made a game with it like Guardians of the Galaxy. That's the thing, Hannah. And thank you for the super chat. People saw that cinematic trailer and liked it. People got excited when they saw that cinematic trailer. The whiplash came from what happened immediately after. Because like they had this opening cinematic, which people really thought looked good. It was this Guardians of the Galaxy level thing. It seemed to be decently written. The production value was crazy high. The world seemed interesting enough. Like, and people thought, oh, is this going to be just a big epic Guardians of the Galaxy style game that happens to feature a multiplayer mode or something? And then right after this, they cut away and they're like, Concord is a new 5v5 hero shooter and immediately everybody checked out. Everybody was like, oh. But this people wanted. People thought this was interesting. They just didn't want the actual game, which is what's kind of funny about the whole Concord debacle, is that in an alternative universe, they could have reworked it into something that could work, but it just, they wasted it, and they were too busy trying to chase that hero shooter trend. 8 years, 200 million, 29 players. It's not even Overwatch. It's just over. That's good. I like that. That's clever. Yeah, this is probably the most high quality trailer I've ever seen for a game that failed horribly on launch. I mean, it's the biggest flop probably in the history of gaming. It really is colossal. Again, people forget, but if you rewind the clocks a year, this time last year, people thought that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was probably going to pop off. Maybe, maybe not, but people who were calling, people like me, people were saying that those of us who were very, very skeptical of the game, because remember, previews hadn't launched yet. They said we were being unfair. They said, no, trust in Rocksteady. They made multiple games of the year. They know what they're doing. There's no way this flops because they previously did such amazing work. Then we ended up getting Suicide Squad. And then we got Concord, of course, which was just a total disaster that people expected to at least do a little bit better. What was the other one? We had another big flop this year. What was another big one? Wasn't there another one? Am I just totally blanking? Foam Stars, that's true. Skull and Bones, that's the one I was thinking of. I was like, there's another live service thing. Yeah, Foam Stars was shut down, but also Skull and Bones was also a big one that had a lot of money. And honestly, I'm just amazed that that launched. But funnily enough, you rewind the clocks a year, if you ask people what is going to be the one live service game still standing at the end of 2024, or after a year maybe, I think everybody would have said Skull and Bones will be shut down before any of the others. But Skull and Bones is the only one to still be going. Suicide Squad's going to be shut down officially like January 10th. Concord's gone. Skull and Bones is still doing content. Who'da thunk it? Who'da thunk it? But again, like, sometimes the funniest outcome ends up being the most likely. Isn't that funny? Isn't that how it works? How many people do even play Skull and Bones? Apparently the numbers for what they were expecting are not that bad. Steam numbers are never going to be that useful here because most of the people that are playing it through like console or the Ubisoft launcher. So Steam numbers aren't that useful. As you can see, I mean, it's pretty abysmal. But I would guess if you count all the other players on other platforms, they might be able to hit like 2,000 a day, 1,500 to 2,000 a day peak concurrent, which I think they were expecting the game to be dead by now. But there are people that like the game and play it a lot. Not many of them, but there are people out there. Stop it, it's a flop. No, without a doubt, it's a flop. Like, do not get this twisted. Skull and Bones was no success. Okay, what we're saying is, amazingly enough, Skull and Bones was somehow more successful than Suicide Squad and Concord, which is amazing. Like, it's still going at the very least. It's still not making hardly any money, I don't think. I mean, they're probably picking up table scraps, but it's not been totally shut down. And again, back in 2023, everybody was like, no, I think Skull and Bones probably gets like canceled if it even releases. They release it for a week and then they cancel it. But no, it's like, it's still going, which is ridiculous. Yeah, Forward Horde, I don't know how to say this more clearly to you. It is a flop. It failed. We are saying it failed a little bit less than the other games that are fully dead right now that launched in a similar time frame. Okay? Maybe if I demonstrate it with a crayon drawing, this will make it a little easier. Here, crayon. This is the water level. Okay? This is the sea floor. Water theme, boats, ships. Tracking.
Rafael Carvalho is now a member.
Booyah.
You guys forgot we're talking about an AAA game.
Yeah, we are talking about a quadruple A game. You're right. Skull and Bones, you know. Well, let's say Suicide Squad, completely sunk. Suicide Squad's down here. Okay, fully sunk to the bottom. Foam Stars, totally sunk. Bottom. Dead. Gone. Concord.
Hannah is now a member.
It's under the ground. Thank you, Hannah. It's under the ground, buried even deeper. Skull and Bones is still sinking, but it's like here drifting down to the seafloor. But it's still technically above the seafloor. It's not totally settled and done. All of this is underwater. This is all bad. Nobody wants this. But this is still better. Yeah, booyah. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. 24 months, 2 years. That's insane. Thank you, Sean. That's wild. But I mean, yeah, this is all I'm saying. This is still bad. This is sadness. Okay. So sad. But it is ever so slightly less sad than these which have already collapsed onto the seafloor. That's all I'm saying. Okay? Does that make more sense? Maybe. I feel like every time it's like, yeah, this game is a flop, this game's a flop, but this one technically flopped harder. People are like, so this game was a success? No. No. Just please. Let's think about this. You just got arted. Yeah. Big juicy art. Oh man. Yeah, some sinking ships still take a little while to sink. It's still bad, but it's better than the ship that just is engulfed into the void, because at least there's a little bit more chance for people to get off, you know. Still bad. Sean, thank you. 5 gifted memberships. Welcome everybody who got that. Welcome. It's a good time to be a member too, because we are getting close to the early launch of the Witcher video. I had to reshoot and re-record a bunch of stuff because the Witcher 4 trailer came out, so we added like a whole other segment to it and reshot a ton of stuff, which is probably for the best. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I don't think I was not ready for a Witcher trailer to drop as we're preparing this. It's probably good, because if we had dropped this Witcher video like 3 days before the Witcher 4 trailer dropped, it would have been like, oh, well, but now it's okay. How long's the video? It's no Starfield saga video. It's not 8 hours long, but it's a bigger video for sure. Exact timelines, I'm not sure. Jacob's working on it. Yeah, that's crazy. Thank you again, Sean. 2 years, booyah. Hannah, thank you also for the membership. Let's see. Blake, thank you for that one. You can have a top 5 or 10 most anticipated games for 2025. Make for fun content. Yeah, we can do a list kind of thing for that. Rank my most hyped ones. Have I played PoE 2? Never played number 1, but it's great. Yeah, no, dude, I'm eating it up. I'm loving it. It's not really the kind of video that my audience tends to connect with much, but I'm personally enjoying it and having a good time. Take thing for that one. Looks like it came out of the bargain bin in Kmart. I'm trying to think of what that would have been in reference to. Concord, maybe? Probably. Okay. Oh, the watch. Oh, the Richard Mille watch. Yeah. Yeah, that Richard Mille that XQC was wearing. It's one of those things, watch people know Richard Mille because they're very famous and most like super wealthy people wear them. But it's also one of those things that like I don't think anybody really loves the look. The craziest watches are the Jacob & Co. These ones actually like are ridiculous. I've shown you guys these before, and then we'll talk about the next thing. But like these are the ridiculously expensive watches. Astronomia Solar Zodiac. Like it literally, as it rotates, like simulates the movement of the planets and stuff. It's like actually ridiculous. So like I don't even know how you tell time on this thing. Is it just this dial is time and then everything else is just kind of separate? I don't know, but you can see like as it moves, the planets turn and stuff. Like this one's outrageous. This one's absolutely outrageous. Look at that. But this is a watch that you're not wearing out and about. You're not wearing this while you stream. You know, this is a watch you wear to the Oscars when you're about to win. You know, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. How do you not buy that? You don't buy it because it costs like $1.5 million. Easy. Pretty easy. Patek Philippe, yeah, those are good watches. Patek Philippe are like the fancy watches that super wealthy people wear if they don't want others to realize they're super wealthy, because they are very, very nice. They're extremely high quality, but if you saw somebody wearing it walking down the street, you probably wouldn't realize that person's a billionaire or like a multi-millionaire, because those watches are like, you know, $100,000+, like $80,000, $90,000, $100,000. Anyway. Let's talk about this real quick. Also I did read that one. House of Haas again. Thank you for that. Yeah, we're going to watch it, Sargon. We're going to watch the Exodus gameplay reveal. So yeah, don't you worry. We're going to get there. I'm going to focus up, stop talking about watches and Egyptian archaeology drama, and we're going to focus up and get through some segments, okay? You ready? Let's do it. Let's do it. New segment. Also, Blake, you ever play Overwatch 2? I thought it was going to be a chill game to play with friends. I ended up wanting to strangle them last night. Yeah, it's a really good party game, but yeah, that'll test relationships. I wouldn't be surprised if there are a sizable number of like romantic relationships or marriages that have been destroyed by Overwatch, or Overwatch by Overcooked. It's good, but it can be stressful. It's all about communication. New segment. So Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance is being delisted officially. The co-op RPG will remain purchasable up until that date, after which the base game and its DLC will remain playable offline in single player only. In other words, they're shutting down all of the servers. As they say here, we will be shutting down the Dark Alliance servers on February 24th, 2025, and it will no longer be available to purchase starting that day. I mean, for one, you might be like, what's this game? Dark Alliance, this was like a reboot of an old franchise that kind of died out, and then they brought it back. But this particular version was just really rough. It was buggy. It was just frankly not good. And as a result, player counts have been abysmal. I mean, we're talking right now, after this announcement, they are at 5 players. And you notice these gaps in this chart? That's because there are regular periods where there are no players online. There's not a single person planet-wide playing this game. A lot of it, and I don't know what this is, but there's occasions where like only one person is playing it, 2, 3, 11. But on the whole, like all of Friday, November 22nd, only 3 people played, or a peak of 3 players played. You know, these are not sustainable player numbers for servers. And even if the servers were on, I mean, this is worldwide. So if there's somebody playing in Albania and then you have somebody else playing in San Francisco, I don't think that matchmaking would even be worth it. You know, so they're probably playing solo anyway. But they've announced they're going to delist it, so you will no longer be able to buy it. And they're shutting down servers, so it will only be available offline. I appreciate there is an offline version, for one, that amazingly enough is not a given nowadays. A lot of these formerly online games don't often have that implemented. So there's just, once it's gone, it's gone. There's nothing you can do. So I appreciate that there is the way to do that. I remember watching a few reviews for this because I was wondering if it was going to be good, but it just was buggy and boring, and the combat was bad, and it just didn't work. But it's going to be shut down. It's going to be closing its doors, and they're going to be moving on. Now, you might be wondering, what are they moving on to? Well, this is actually one of the interesting little tidbits. You might see this developer name, Tukwe Games or whatever. If we Google that, Google, we're going to Google it. Nope, that didn't work. Tukwe Games. They have been renamed Invoke, and Wizards of the Coast announced that they that's 2022. Yeah, so they rebranded everything. They redid all of that. Sure, I accept your cookies. They are an autonomous independent studio. Okay. A rapidly growing team. They have people that formerly worked on games, a lot of them at Ubisoft, like Splinter Cell, the OG Far Cry games, for example. But interestingly enough, we talked about this in a previous segment too. Let me see if I can find it. Is this it? I think I found it. Invoke Studios, they've posted job listings and stuff because they are working on some big unannounced D&D game. We are working on a AAA game set in the world's most iconic role-playing game or role-playing universe, D&D. It's a privilege to enter this world, let our imaginations run wild, and play a part in its legacy. And apparently they've hired a ton of people as well, so the studio's grown a ton.
Do you think there's any feasible solution for the immense ballooning of development times? What can be done to make games in less time without sacrificing quality?
That's a fantastic question. I will dig into that in just a moment, Roke, okay? I will not forget it. I will dig into that in just a minute because there's not really a quick and easy answer, but there is an answer, I think. So yeah, I'll get to that in just a second. But with all this said, they are working on something big that has justified them like doubling their team size apparently. And it's still unannounced, but potentially we hear about it soon. But this to me seems like a further like pivot away from everything about Dark Alliance. I think Wizards of the Coast probably was not too thrilled with how this went, and I don't think these guys were too thrilled with how it went. So they rebranded the entire studio. The job listings, I've been looking at them. It's a lot of people with experience. They're asking for experience with like sort of like single player adventure games. So to me, it suggests that they're trying to like totally rebrand and refocus, which is interesting. So I like this, of course, it's always a bummer when we hear that something's being delisted. The literal 5 people playing it, I'm sure will be frustrated that it's been delisted, I guess, but they also will still be able to play it offline, which I think is about the best way you could handle this type of thing. Allowing it to continue being available for sale would just mean that more people could buy into it with a bad experience, bad servers, and you know, the only better solution would be if they could also patch in like peer-to-peer stuff to still allow for co-op if players wanted that. But again, like there is a point where like you only have 5 people playing, like 5 across the planet. I can understand why maybe they're like, it's just not worth the effort. Like even having Jim work on it for a Friday afternoon is probably not that reasonable to do. I get it. It's still frustrating. It's still disappointing that anything has to be delisted, but you know, hopefully this is just the final closing of the Dark Alliance chapter and the studio can move forward. Because it's not typical, again, for a studio to put out something really, really rough and get a second chance. It's also really, really uncommon for them to put out something really poorly received, get the second chance to make another game, and get greenlit to hire tons of people and spend tons more money. Hopefully, that means whatever they're working on has a lot of potential. That's the hope, but time will tell. But yeah, if you're one of those 5 people that was still playing Dark Alliance, I'm sorry. Soon it will only be single player and you will not be able to play with your friend. So there you go. As for your comment, Roke, do you think there is any feasible solution for the immense ballooning of development times? What can be done to make games in less time without sacrificing quality? There's sort of like a few different levers to be messed with at any given time to affect the output of a game studio. You can either spend more time with the same number of developers, the same tool sets and everything, and that will balloon the budget, but hopefully lead to a higher quality product. You can balloon the number of people working, but keep the amount of time the same. That will also get you a bigger, potentially better game because there's more work being put into it. But again, cost will increase. And the other side is like you could try to come up with more advanced tools, or you could try to come up with better technology or outsourcing or things like that that could potentially streamline things a little bit, but that also has costs associated with it. So really at the end of the day, like to reduce cost, you have to drop one of those levers. You have to reduce the number of people working on it, the time or the compensation of those people working on it, pay them less. And none of those is a great solution, and none of those solutions generally lead to higher quality, right? Like you can pay people less, but more money tends to attract the better talent. So less money will attract greener talent, fresher talent that is not as experienced and maybe won't be able to put out as high quality of a product at the end of the day. So that's a problem. You can cut development time and shorten it up, but that also has other cascading consequences where it's like, okay, either you're going to deal with crunch or we're going to deal with like tighter scope. The game has to be smaller because we don't have as much time to work on it. And that also for a lot of people would represent a drop in quality as well. So there's no magic solution to just wave a wand and now games are cheaper. In some cases, I think there is a little bit of like executive cannibalization of budgets, and there's inefficiencies that are present because of mismanagement. And that's something we've seen time and time again with games that are just mismanaged and they take twice as long. Like how Concord took 8 years to make from ideation to release is insane to me. Like I don't know how you could spend 8 years on such a mediocre thing, but they did. And I think it was because of mismanagement. I think it's because they didn't have anybody coming in there and slapping them upside the head and being like, no, we put this out now because if we spend too much time on it, there's no way, even if it's successful, we pay our bills. So I think that they just had that issue. But I think that's why executives at these game companies, whether it's EA or Ubisoft or any Microsoft Studios, ZeniMax, Bethesda Softworks, like no matter where you look, there's a ton of excitement within executives' offices for AI, for new tool sets coming from Unreal Engine or whatever else that should streamline the workflows and streamline the development process. If they don't have to employ 50 software engineers to design their own engine, great. That's a savings in budget right there. We don't need to build our own engine. We can just license it for cheaper from some other company. Great. That saves money. Hopefully it also leads to more efficiency because everybody knows the tools and stuff. That could lead to reduced budgets and quicker turnaround times and stuff. So that could be one way of doing it. The AI stuff, like these executives are eating it up. The idea that you could have, instead of having to have like a team of writers, you just have AI write the script of the game for you, which of course sounds horrible. But to an executive sitting in their office on the 52nd floor of a high rise, you can understand why they would think that's the solution to our problems. So I think that there is not an easy solution, but the solution they will be chasing is to try and find ways to increase efficiency. I think you'll see studios really trying to pump out games built on sort of an algorithmic way. So you'll have a lot more radiant quest lines. You'll probably have less handcrafted stuff, except for some very specific studios that are really good at it. And ideally, like, I think the best thing for the industry would be tighter scope. You know, instead of trying to do something where every game is 50 hours long, maybe let's re-normalize the idea of a 15-hour game. That's okay. That's still a solid game. We don't need everything to be 40, 50, 60, 70 hours, okay? It's all right to have a solid 15-hour experience. But when you introduce like an open world, when you introduce all this other stuff, people start to expect the much longer run times. And if you don't achieve that, then it feels really, really bad. So I think it's a weird time in the industry because we're at this sort of crossroads of what we're doing right now does not work for the AAA development scene, and they've got to do something else. And what that is remains to be seen. I think most likely it's going to be a lot more implementation of AI, a lot of downsizing of teams. I think you're going to see games start to get probably smaller and simpler. There will be less games trying to do everything all at once, less big open world games. And you're already seeing that to a certain extent with some games, like the new Mafia game is expected. They said it's not going to be open world. It's going to be linear. That was a franchise that previously pushed for that open world, and they backed off that for this upcoming game because they're like, yeah, it's too developmentally intensive. It's too expensive. It's too time consuming. And even then, players don't tend to love it that much because it's really hard to do an open world really well. So we're just not going to bother trying, and we're going to focus our efforts elsewhere. I think you're going to see a lot of stuff like that. So it's a good question, but there will be some growing pains because I do think some people are going to be like, no, I want my games longer. I want them big. I want them juicy. I want them dummy thick. And maybe we get there, but I think there's going to be a lot of games that are much smaller than people expect. So I remember the initial UE5 demo was all about how all the new tools would make development faster and easier, but I don't think we've seen that to be true. That one video we watched on Monday was really, really good from Thread Interactive, where they broke down like how so many of these features of Unreal look really, really promising and good at first glance, but when you actually pause and you break it down, it's not actually that simple. Like, there's a lot more that goes into it beyond that, and for every optimization on one hand, there are tons of drawbacks elsewhere. And yeah, this channel's put out some great stuff that really exemplifies why it's not that simple. So I think Unreal Engine is an amazing tool, but it's not a panacea. It doesn't magically fix anything and everything. You know, it still has some shortcomings. Yeah. RGG does open world perfectly. It's not a big map, but there's tons of stuff crammed in. I mean, I think they do this sort of hybrid open world thing that does work for those games, but I also think that their games have historically struggled to appeal to Western audiences, and Western audiences are attuned to a very particular type of open world that has been popularized by like Ubisoft and EA and Rockstar, and the totally massive map, totally open-ended. That's something a lot of people expect, you know. Moom O'Brien, thank you for becoming a member. Thank you. Moom O'Brien. Thank you. Yes, the skate story hands on by Skill Up, isn't it? Oh, that little thing. Yeah, I saw he posted that. I didn't watch it though. Is it good? It's a very niche game. I hope we're at a point where we can start doing smaller videos like that and people will at least engage with them a little bit, because right now on YouTube, like if you're not covering a big game, the views just don't tend to really be there to justify the work and having your editors work on it. And it's just, it's too bad because we can't talk about smaller games on our main channels at least and have the videos perform. But if we can get to the point where those videos do perform at least decently well, then we can start promoting some of those smaller things. How I've managed it before is like if we get a sponsorship, I can justify it because I can have the team work on it. So if somebody reaches out and is like, hey, can you showcase our game or just do a little I tried and show people our game? Then I'm like, sure, yeah, we can do that. That'll work. Even if the view counts aren't great, it still can work. But I hope we can get to the point where we don't need that. Sorry if I missed it already, but do you have thoughts on the Catley probably fake game? I saw the tweets and posts going around. I didn't think there was enough to really cover it. I was hoping we would eventually get a trailer or something. We'll see. I mean, nobody should be pre-ordering anything ever, but yeah. It's sad that a lot of YouTubers have to do Switch 2 rumor videos for views. Are people doing that? I didn't even know. Like I saw the leaks and stuff. It just looks like a Switch, but with an extra button, which I don't think really surprised anybody, but whatever. Do I think the new Naughty Dog game is only going to be 15 hours long? No, it seems like it's going to be much more open-ended than their previous stuff. I've already predicted and said I think it's going to be much more like the Seattle section of The Last of Us Part 2 or the open area in The Lost Legacy. That seems to be what they've been building towards. And I think they developed a lot of tech and they reworked their engine to support broader environments for the Last of Us Online game that they ended up walking away from. So I think it's going to be very, very open-ended. It's probably going to be one of those games where it's a big map and you have 5 objectives to seek out in that map and you tackle them in whichever order you want, which kind of makes sense. Like you have, find your 5 previous crewmates or whatever the syndicate or whatever they ace something, whatever their group was. It's like, go find those people. They're scattered around here on the map. Go find them. And I think it's going to be like that. Might be structured unironically. It might be structured kind of like Far Cry 5, if you ever played that. I think that's probably what they do. I don't think it'll be like a 15-hour super lean linear thing. What's Naughty Dog's engine? It's proprietary. Only they use it. I forget what they call it, but yeah, it's just theirs. Just for them. So mine, thank you for that. Every AAA game needs to be open world thing needs to die. Many games feel so claustrophobic due to the lack of agency. I miss games like BioShock and Dishonored, mission-based linear. You still had tons of control. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there have been some linear games like that, but the question is whether they still sell well. And, you know, we can all say, I really want that, but if we're not buying it at launch for full price, they're not going to be able to justify making them. So it's a little easier said than done, but I do hope that they pivot off of that. I think some big moves from some big franchises will help with that. Like, for example, we heard that one of the next Assassin's Creed games, Assassin's Creed codename Hexe, that is apparently going to be more linear. It's going to be more dark and gritty. It's not going to be the big open world game like Odyssey or Valhalla or Shadows. It's going to be much tighter, much more linear. And I think more God of War like probably. I think that will help. If those games come out and those games sell well, then I think people could connect with them. Judas, yeah, if that ends up being good, that could be really cool. I just think we need to get back to those fundamentals, because I think everybody just started chasing, all these dev studios started chasing the big open world thing because that's what was popular. And now those games are still popular, but I think people are hungry for what was lost in that process. You know, I forgot about Judas. Yeah, they came out, they did that big interview with SkillUp and Jake, and there was another couple people they met with. It was like, was it 10 months ago? 8 months ago? Yeah, 8 months ago. Remember they did this? It was kind of out of nowhere. It's really like almost bizarre. It was just like, what? We're coming out, we're doing this interview now. And then we heard nothing about it after that. It was really bizarre because usually when you see interviews like this, they're doing it to like rev up a marketing cycle or something, or prep the audience for an announcement trailer or a gameplay trailer at the Game Awards or something. But there was just nothing really like that. It was really surprising because they just did this and then there was nothing else. So I don't know what the goal was with this, but I mean, it was still interesting to hear him do the podcast and talk to people about it. I think that's a good way to market your game, but I don't know what happened to the game. I hope it's still on track for next year. I hope they didn't delay it again. We'll see though. We'll see. Yeah, it's Jake from State Farm. Yeah. He also is a YouTuber. He looks like he's on something. That's just being a YouTuber. So the game looks cool, but he's taking way too long. Same with the new BioShock game. Yeah, I mean, the new BioShock game, the fact it's coming from a totally new studio, that one for me is like, I'll believe it when I see it. They have some OGs working on it that worked on the original BioShock game. So I'm optimistic, but again, we haven't seen anything about it. Judas to me sounds like one of those Ken Levine games where he has a couple of ideas. He has this narrative Lego brick thing, which his idea is based on how you play and how you go through the game. Different narrative bricks will be built, so everybody's experience with the game will be different. Maybe if you go through and you make this choice, the bad guy talks to you in this hallway instead of that hallway, or will deliver this line of dialogue instead of that line of dialogue, pushing you over here. And if you side with this character, then they will help you and this person will get angry. So this narrative Lego block goes here. Sounds interesting. It basically sounds like a narrative RPG, like a Detroit Become Human, but with more action and where it's less scripted with how things go and it's dynamic. So things can actively swap in and out. Sounds interesting. I could see that being really, really cool and groundbreaking, or a total disaster. And it's just nonsensically like, this character did this in reaction to my action, but that doesn't make sense because they previously said this. And so like the Lego bricks get out of order and they don't really click together that well. So I could see it going really poorly as well. I'm not sure. Yeah. But he's been talking about the legative, or the legative, about the narrative Lego bricks for like a decade. There's interviews of him back in like 2015 talking about, I have this idea for narrative Lego bricks. And at the time we're all like, okay, dude, whatever. But now he's actually making the game with it, which is kind of cool. So we'll see. Mojo, thank you. Mojo Mo, thank you. 5 gifted memberships. That's fantastic. Thank you. Welcome everybody. Also we have seen gaming dev giants from 10 years ago really struggle lately. So who do you see going forward becoming the juggernauts in the gaming world? CDPR, I think they're going to get back on track. I would expect The Witcher 4 to pop off. Already, like, those view counts on that trailer are ridiculous. So I think that's going to be huge. Take-Two is still going to be doing their thing. I think EA is going to continue pushing. They've just managed to fly under the radar with a lot of their stuff. Ubisoft has like absorbed all of the negativity in the gaming industry the last 2 years. So, you know, it used to be all of these videos and like anti-Ubisoft videos, all those used to be directed at EA. People forget, but like 2014, 15, 16, 17, EA was loathed. And people maybe still don't like them, but EA was the whipping post of the entire gaming industry. I mean, they were voted world's or the country's worst company like 2 years in a row. Blizzard was also treated that way, but Ubisoft has just totally absorbed all of that. And typically in the games industry, what happens is after a little while, people get kind of bored of going after them, or the studio releases something good and people just kind of like, oh, well, they get quiet and they go find another company to yell at. So I think most likely this is just a cycle that repeats every few years. So in 5 years, I don't think it'll probably be Ubisoft. I think something will probably happen. Maybe Tencent will buy them out with the help of the Guillemot family. And they'll put out maybe a solid game or two, and then people will drift off and they'll start yelling at Bethesda again because they screwed up Elder Scrolls 6, or maybe, you know, Sony releases the next God of War and it's terrible or something. Like, you just never know. You never know. But this happens all the time. The industry is very cyclical. It's just everybody gets a turn to be the hated company, and EA has received much less of the stink recently, but I think it's only a matter of time before it returns. Warner Brothers, though, they're getting close. Warner Brothers was saved by Hogwarts Legacy, but we know that they have this Wonder Woman game that's been in development hell for a while. I heard from a very reliable source that apparently the issue is a shift in the engines they're using, and as a result, the porting of the Nemesis system and all the other stuff they developed for the Middle-earth games have been a disaster. It's been extremely difficult to get it working. So Wonder Woman's had a lot of troubles. I can actually back up Greg Miller on that now. And they have some other big projects that they're working on. Of course, Suicide Squad didn't go too hot for them. But Warner Brothers, if they're not careful, they could also get tied up in the similar drama. But they're also like in a rough spot right now. How bad will the backlash be if GTA 6 flops? The thing is, GTA 6 is going to sell crazy well at launch, but most of the money for GTA comes from the microtransactions and shark cards in the online mode. Those people, they won't really care if like the writing isn't very good. Like it's not what GTA Online is about. Now, if GTA Online is a disaster and doesn't work right and is buggy, or you can't get into matches, or the hacking is terrible again, if you have problems like that, then you could see an actual reaction from the company. But I think the single player side of things will have less of an impact on the company than people maybe expect. But yeah, I mean, the odds of GTA 6 flopping are like very low. If by flop you mean profitability, like that thing is going to make so much money, it will break your brain. Take thing for that one. Pressures of GTA 6, Witcher 4, and Elder Scrolls 6 must be crazy. Yeah, dude. I mean, Witcher 4, I think they're more confident after Phantom Liberty. Prior to that being received well, I think they were probably sweating bullets. GTA 6, I think at this point, they're pretty confident in what they've got. They've said as much. And, you know, you can always tell, because when a studio is like really worried that expectations are getting out of control, they'll start to try to tamp it down, and they'll like, you know, we can only do so much and stuff like that. But with GTA 6, they're like, no, it's going to blow your mind. It's going to blow your mind. It's crazy cool. And with Witcher 4, they're also going around doing interviews, like hyping it up. Elder Scrolls 6, I don't know. But frankly, I think the fact it's being built in the same tools as Starfield, to me, does not instill a lot of confidence, but that doesn't really surprise anybody because I have very little confidence in BGS. But I would say like they have the least amount of confidence from their own fans of any point in the last 20 years. Last time I think people were this down on BGS was probably not just Fallout 76. I mean, obviously that was peak, but if we ignore that bubble, it was probably like Redguard era when things were just super buggy and messy. Why don't BGS change engines so that they can care about mod support, or are they just comfortable with mediocrity? I mean, it's a lot of different things. They've spent a ton of money on the creation engine. They've spent a ton of time on it. Everybody on their team knows it. All of their design all of their design like systems are set up that way. It's just, yeah, I think there's many reasons for it, but more than anything, I think it's as simple as, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. For them, they don't think it's broke. For them, they look at the numbers and they say, we had more players in Starfield than any of our games in the history of our company. So even though there's a lot of hullabaloo online, even though Luke made a lot of videos, people still played it. So why would we need to change it? And I think that's where they're at. That's where they're at. Numbers don't mean great, but that's why it's so crucial when somebody says like flop or something to ask them by what metric. Like that's the key. If you are considering something a flop based on financial performance, that's a different standard than player counts, you know? That's a different standard than, you know, oh, we're just trying to recoup development costs and break even. Okay, we can gauge it on that. And if you fail to do that, then it's a flop. Or if you're saying, oh no, we want to make X amount of dollars in profit, and if we don't hit there, we will consider it a failure. Okay, that's a different standard. It's why, like, for some things, I don't think that they ever expected to make a profit on something like Dragon Age Veilguard, because I don't know how you possibly could. They worked on that thing for like, what, 7-8 years? And it restarted development like a couple times. Like I don't think there was ever going to be a world in which that could make a profit. The question is, how much did they expect to lose on it? Like, were they expecting, oh, we'll lose 100 million on it or 50 million? And we only lost 25 million. It did better than we expected. That in that case is probably not a flop, but that's why it's really crucial to ask what the standards are, you know? And Game Pass, you're right, Game Pass complicates it, because with Game Pass, something can launch and have an amazing number of players. But if they play it for 5 hours and then cancel their Game Pass subscription, that's a failure. I mean, that's not what they want. They want to build out the library. They want people to sign up for Game Pass to get that game and keep their subscription. So but that's the key thing, is we don't know what like Microsoft gauges success on, because something like what's the musical game, the rhythm game from Tokyo, oh God, what's it called? Studio was shut down, then bought out by Krafton. Hi-Fi Rush. Thank you, Ilya. Like Hi-Fi Rush was, by most people's metrics, a big success. According to Xbox, it was not. So what were they doing differently? Like, why did they look at it this way and these guys looked at it this way? We just don't know what those standards are. So it very well could be that like the it very well could be that the it very well could be that for a company like Xbox, for Game Pass, that Starfield was like a tremendous success. In which case, yeah, why would they change stuff? Why would they reinvent the wheel? Like, they don't need to. Or maybe, you know, they were really dissatisfied and Todd's just saving face. I don't know. But that's the key, is we don't know. So it's not as simple as like, oh, this game, I didn't like it, so therefore it's a flop. No, that's not a given. It's not a given, because the standards are different. Yeah, Lukey Exceed crashed. Yeah, I had a brain melt. My brain rebooted. It's the Windows restart sound. Yeah. Do. Oh, man. I do find it funny that the most praised Todd Howard game of the last decade was the one he was an executive producer on, and that his company didn't develop. It's a little funny. Indiana Jones, critical acclaim. People really, really like it. He was an executive producer on it. He apparently had a big role in it, and it's the one game that his company didn't make. It's a little funny. When we get the next episode of the Greatest Podcast, in like an hour and 20 minutes, Joe Raptor should be back. We should be having a great time. It'll be good. Yeah, I have been enjoying Indiana Jones a lot. Yeah, I really like it. It's the first couple hours, I was like, guys, the AI is so stupid. And it carries through. Like, the AI is pretty dumb even very dumb later in the game. But like amazingly enough, it doesn't actually hurt the game that much because the rest of the game is so good. Like the writing, the environments, the puzzles, it's actually really, really well done. So I'm not done with it yet, but I've been really impressed with it. And it's one of those games where amazingly enough, like some of the shortcomings do not actually weigh it down as much as you would think. Yeah, as long as it's fun. Yeah, it's one of those games that's we talk about it a lot with different games, but like there's different things where if you imagine a scale, you know, a big scale, and that's how you're like grading the value of a game. If we have like, you know, ooh, the scale, and then it goes up, and then we have boop, boop, and we have the little plate or whatever, plate, boop, bloop, and then, you know, this goes down and holds it. If we're evaluating the quality of a game, like Indiana Jones, yeah, the AI is pretty stupid. It's like right there. But then you have other things like the AI or the environments are really good, and the story is really solid. The performance from Troy Baker is outrageous, like very, very good. Graphically, it's pretty solid. It's very heavy to run. Path tracing and ray tracing in general on it is not probably worth it to me, even running a 4090, but still it's impressive. There's all these other things, you know, the art direction, the music is really good. So you can look at it and it's like, yeah, there are downsides. It's heavy to run. The AI is pretty stupid. The combat's really clunky and stuff. But ultimately, there's a lot more good and positives than there are negatives. And so even though we can point at things that are bad, it's still a net positive. Like it's still going to be worth getting and worth playing. And one of the dangers is when you're trying to critique something or look at something, it's really easy to just focus on a couple of the bad bits and ignore all this. But I'm really happy to see that there's enough good that it outweighs the bad. The problem with games like Star Wars Outlaws that have these same problems is that even with, like, you know, bad AI, the performance wasn't very good, and then like the writing was meh and the characters were eh. Even with that, like there weren't enough good parts to outweigh the bad parts as it was at launch. And that's the difference. With indie, though, there's enough good parts that it kind of tips the scale in that direction. So that red dot is holding a lot of weight. Yeah. Yeah, sure is. Aren't we all? Aren't we all? Okay. Okay. Troy Baker did a phenomenal... Dude, for real, I still can't believe that's him. I still can't believe that's him. It's ridiculous. Metallica Fund, could you send a link to your Patreon? So we actually are closing down the Patreon at the end of the year, and we're going to be doing everything through memberships and subs. I thought it was going to be nice to have like a separate place just for that. But then I was like, no, you know what? If like members, YouTube members, for example, have like paid $5 to be a member, they should get rewarded with early access to the big videos. They should get rewarded with this and that, like the exclusive monthly video. They should get that stuff. So it's just, you know, I decided to merge them back together instead of trying to have 15 different places people have to think about or worry about. So thought Luke was about to announce an OnlyFans. Well, that leads me great into my next segment. Okay. Ugh, okay. Let's do this. Let's talk about this. New segment. So there is a trailer that just dropped for an upcoming game. A game from some amazingly talented devs, which, you know, this is one of the most interesting things about the industry today is that a lot of people are like, well, the people that made old school like Mass Effect games, they're no longer there. The people that made the Batman Arkham games great, they're no longer at Rocksteady. The people that made Skyrim so good, they're no longer at BGS. And to a certain extent, a lot of that is true. A lot of people have left those studios, but it makes you want to ask the next question, which is, okay, well, where did they go? You know, where did they go after they left, after they did all of that? And I think the answer is pretty simple. It's just that they went to form their own studios. They got promoted into higher positions. They just got booted around. You know, they shifted around the industry and went elsewhere. But that doesn't mean their work has gone just totally forgotten. There's more. There's more. Exodus is an upcoming game from former devs, former people that worked very, very hard for a long time. And they, here's how we'll do it. There, sorry, just fixing the chat so we don't have the bots spamming the same thing. So this trailer is for Exodus. It's the gameplay trailer from this studio, Archetype Entertainment. And it kind of came out of nowhere. We knew that they were going to reveal something here and there, but a couple of important things to note is that it is an action RPG. There's dialogue choices, you get your own ship. There's companions who are both human and alien. Shinobi did a little recap here, skill trees, all of that. You play as June, who the team describes as sort of a mix between Indiana Jones and Paul Atreides. Not sure. You can customize your character, male or female. Choices in the game define you. Game structured. There are structured quests as well as in areas you explore around in, similar to KOTOR, Mass Effect, Dragon Age Origins. This is important because guess who a lot of these developers, guess what are some of the biggest games they've worked on? KOTOR, Mass Effect, Dragon Age Origins. Like a lot of those people that made these games worked here and worked on those games. Isn't that crazy? So they describe how they will have a large cast of companions, bring two along with you on quests just like Mass Effect. Romances are confirmed to be in the game. Some companions will be at each other's throats and you'll have to side with some over others. Some companions can change radically depending on choices you make. For example, through time dilation, leaving companions behind may change them, age them, etc. by the time you come back. This is one of the coolest little elements. Time dilation is a thing, which I am not qualified to talk about, but basically because of how funky gravity is, if you travel near points of extreme mass like the sun or a black hole, probably is the better example, time will pass at a different rate. So as you're traveling through the galaxy, time will pass at a faster rate or at a slower rate for you, but it'll remain constant for other people. So if you leave somebody behind on your base or on planet, you go on this big adventure, you come back, time will have passed at different rates. So those people will have aged more than you did. Oh God. It's the old saying it's the old example where they say, like, if you go next to the sun and you orbit around the sun super close to it, or a black hole super close to it, and then you fly back to Earth. For you, that might have only been a year, but everybody you knew on planet Earth will be dead and gone because the time relativity is crazy. It'll break your brain. It passed at a different rate for you too. And that's something typically in video games where they're just like, never mind. They're just like, nah, we don't want to, don't even start with that because it's such like, it'll break your brain. It's like, I just can't even begin to figure out how we'd implement that into a game, but that is something they're going to be doing here. So if you leave companions behind and then you go and explore, that should factor in, which is really, really cool. Okay. So all of that said, let's look at the gameplay trailer because again, this is a small unknown studio basically, and they are single-handedly releasing a trailer for what looks like a spiritual successor to Mass Effect that looks better than anything we've seen from any of the other big of the big studios recently. So let's see what this looks like.
Preparing to transfer now. This is your last chance to bail, June.
Do it. Loaded weapon is a hell of a way to greet your new partner.
So you're June.
We're burning time. Now that we're all best of friends, let's make each other rich.
I'm not just here to look pretty. I've got away with celestial tech.
Space Bear!
I see a lot of potential in this new partnership.
Let me light the way for you.
Target acquired. Many thanks again.
Space Frog!
You should have been honest. This place is forbidden. The price is death. That's what it means to be a traveler. Become the traveler.
Also, weirdly enough, Wizards of the Coast. Can somebody in chat explain to me why Wizards of the Coast is on it? That surprised me. Is this part of like a bigger franchise that I'm not familiar with? The Exodus franchise, is that a thing? I don't know. Is it coming to Xbox? Yeah, Xbox, PC, PS5, all of that. They're publishing it. Oh, they're just publishing. Okay. Well, good get for them. I mean, if Wizards of the Coast, they're also behind Baldur's Gate 3, technically speaking. So that's good. You know, I'll give them that. There's a book and they're the publisher. Oh, okay. I mean, honestly, like, for one, I think it, amazingly enough, it does strike that Mass Effect vibe like very hard. To the point where it like is a little on the nose with the vibes and the art direction and the styles and stuff. I don't know exactly what to expect from it, you know, at the end of the day. I also don't know why this is the new meta for companion designs. Like, having a bad haircut is not style. You know, like, I feel like with a lot of sci-fi games, they're like, what if we just made them look ridiculous? And when people notice that, we just say it's the future. And that's what they do in the future. Maybe that is fair, because I would never have guessed mullets would make a comeback in 2024, but apparently that's the new hotness. I was talking to my barber last time I got a haircut, and he was like, yeah, dude, probably half the haircuts I do are mullets. I was like, what? Yeah, apparently that's the new hotness. If you have a mullet, this is our moment when we will listen and we won't judge. If you want to say in chat that you have a mullet, this is your time, and I won't ban you. Probably. But you can come out and say that if you need to. Proud mullet, dude. I have one. Mods, get on his ass. Got you. Get out of here. So it's a funny thing in modern game development is whenever there's a sci-fi game, especially like the female characters get screwed over the hardest. I don't know why character designers think bad haircuts are like badass. I don't get it. Because this is bad. If I knew anybody with this haircut, I would personally tackle them to the ground and shave it off, because that's going to be better. This is painful, but it doesn't mean the game will be bad. I just don't know why this is the meta when it comes to character design. But anyway, the rest of the game, you know, the performance capture looks really solid. I also am pretty sure that all of these cutscenes are running at 30 frames, even like here. Yeah, these are all 30 frames. Damn, I'm good. Spotted a mile away. This is the other thing I've been predicting, that, yeah, shocker, Luke can tell the difference between 30 and 60 frames. Wow, how impressive. But this has been my other prediction for a long time, is that I think a lot of the big pushes that are going to be coming in the next 2-3 years, I think big publishers and developers are going to try to re-normalize 30 FPS. I think that's what we're going to see. I think that's going to be the big push, because I think the 60 FPS push has really stretched a lot of these engines and a lot of the tech to the limit, which is why a lot of them look graphically compared to last gen games, and why instability and performance has been such a big issue. And then studios rely too much on things like DLSS and FSR and other temporal solutions to upscale and make things look a little bit better, to hit stronger frame rates. And just across the board, the games don't run that well, and it's a big problem. So I think there's going to be a big push, especially in the shadow of GTA 6, which I'm expecting to run at 30. I would love it if it runs at 60 on console, but I would be very surprised if it does. I think a lot of big publishers are going to try to re-normalize 30 FPS to alleviate some headaches. So seeing that this has its trailer or its cutscenes running at 30 also does not really surprise me. I know this is maybe like a hot take, okay? But some of the greatest games I've ever played, I played at 30, and they were great. They were great. I greatly prefer 60. Dare I say, I prefer 120. I'll go one step further. I prefer 240 frames per second. But 30 FPS is playable and workable. I do not love it, but of some of the most important and like transformational gaming experiences I've ever had, they were pretty much all at 30 frames, whether it was the original launch of The Witcher 3 or games like Breath of the Wild or OG Skyrim or New Vegas or LA Noire or Red Dead Redemption 2. All of those games launched at 30 FPS, and they were amazing at 30 FPS. I would argue they're even better at 60, but they were still amazing at 30, even still. So I'm not one of these alarmists that's like, oh, it has a 30 FPS mode, no 60, boycott. I'm just not one of those people. Maybe that's a hot take. Maybe I'm just a boomer, and I'm like, I remember back in my day when we would get 30 frames and we were happy to get it. Maybe that's what it is. But personally, for me, if the game is good, if the polish is there, and it looks like it deserves, like it's working with that 30 FPS, then I'm okay. The one time where I will be upset is if it looks like crap and it runs at 30, because then I'm like, well, what are we sacrificing for? You know, if you're going to go 30, I expect polish and I expect fidelity. If we don't get either of those and it's still running at 30, then we have a problem. Then I'll be upset. But if the game looks really good and runs well and it happens to be at 30, okay, I can't complain that much, you know. Launch a PC port and that's where you get 60. That's how it used to be. You know, if you wanted the higher FPS, you just get it on PC. But point is, I won't be throwing that big of a fit if it's a 30 FPS game. That to me is not a full-on deal breaker so long as the game looks good. Other little tidbits here in the trailer. I mean, environments look pretty solid. I do think that in terms of structure, it seems to be set up in a very similar way to Mass Effect. So it's going to have, you know, wide levels, but it's not going to be like the big open environments or anything. The sequences with the fights also look really, really polished. Like pretty dynamic with grapple hooks and verticality and things. That's pretty cool. Again, I'm sorry to be that person, but like just cut it off. What are we doing? It's like you got a head full of glow sticks, man. Yeah, purple crystals are back. They're more fetch than ever. Space frogs, I'm here for it. It looks pretty Gucci. Yeah, look at that. Okay. Hair seems solid enough. The light colored eyes. Ooh. Yeah. My guess is it's going to be a game that runs at 30 because it's going to be really heavy to run. Otherwise, probably limited by CPU stuff. So it's not like it'll be able to crank it on console. But coming from the team it's coming from, I think it looks really promising because again, like this is a team, people are asking, you know, how did we get Dragon Age Veilguard instead of something we were expecting or really hoping for? It's like that because a lot of those people that made those games so good, they've gone and they founded their own studios and they've started making games like this. So I think we're going to start to probably hear from a lot of these studios and they're going to start to put stuff out that hopefully starts popping off, whether that's a Judas or an Exodus or whatever else. I think we're going to hear from a lot of fresh studios in the next few years. And no doubt, like somebody earlier in stream was asking, what do you expect is going to be like the big players in the next few years? Do you think that some of the big publishers are going to lose footing and all that? Honestly, I think there's going to be some new players. I think probably in like 5 years, some of the biggest and most beloved studios are probably going to be ones you don't recognize today. Just like how 2-3 years ago, a lot of people didn't know who Larian was. A lot of people had never heard of Larian. They're like, if you told them, oh, they made Divinity Original Sin, they'd be like, oh yeah, I think I remember that game, but they weren't like top of mind. I think that's going to be true of a lot of different studios. Warhorse, yeah. Warhorse. A lot of studios like that, I think, are going to continue to pop off and do well. Also, make sure to subscribe because I got to play a bunch of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and I can't talk about it yet, but I will be able to talk about it soon enough. So make sure to subscribe so I can tell you all about it and you get notified when that happens. Booyah. Okay. Merry Christmas, Luke. Thank you, Cosmic Sin. Thank you. Merry Christmas to you too. Yeah. The stream going to be on the Clips channel. The Kingdom Come thing. Basically what it's going to be is it's going to be a video on the main channel, and then we're going to do like a stream on the same day and do any Q&A, talk about it much more free form. So if you guys have like specific questions or specific things like, hey, you didn't mention this in the video, but I'm wondering what that was like. I wonder if you saw this or that. I'll be able to answer that at that point. If that makes sense. Where's your Christmas tree? It broke. My little bitty Christmas tree I had there last year. It broke. Which is unfortunate. Don't watch the IGN first. It's super spoilery. My understanding is that IGN got to play a lot of the same stuff we played. But I don't know. I've not watched that IGN first. I'm not sure. Okay. Let's see, what time is it? It's 12. We've got Jor coming on in an hour. So let's talk about this. Okay. New segment. Bro. We're going to have you guys formed in the shadow of Star Wars Battlefront. The OG games, like from the mid-2000s, Battlefront 1, Battlefront 2. Those games, like, they were so cool. They were so good. I played them with my brothers so much, so long, so hard. And, oh, man, it was good. Well, eventually, it kind of died out. They had Battlefront 1, Battlefront 2, of course. There were rumors there was going to be a third game. Never really materialized. Disney had a new CEO come in and take over named Bob Iger. He took over from another guy named Michael Eisner. And Bob Iger came in and tried to reform the Disney company and restructure everything. And one of the ways he did that was by shutting down basically all of their game design and game development stuff, whether it was Lucasfilm Games or whatever else. He shut them all down and said, we're going to license out our IP to other game designers and developers and publishers, and we're just going to give the rights and then take a chunk of the revenue. But we're not going to bother making the games ourselves because that's hard. We don't want to do that. That's too difficult. So he shut down all that stuff, including a big Pirates of the Caribbean game that was pretty much done. It was supposed to release in just a few months, and that is now lost media. And some other stuff that was in the works around like, you know, the late 2000s going into the early 2010s. But one of the projects that was caught up just before all of this major transformations happened was Battlefront 3. This was shut down presumably around 2008 for various reasons, and we never really heard anything about it. But 16 years after the fact, the gameplay of Star Wars Battlefront 3 has leaked. No joke. Real talk. Look here, look, listen. Canceled Star Wars Battlefront 3 gameplay leaks online. The build was found via the Free Radical archive. According to them, it comes from a build dated roughly a week before the game's cancellation. Quote, this build made in the final weeks of development is full of content that has not been seen before by fans. As this game was canceled during development, there are still bugs and issues which we can hope will be resolved through future modding. And as you can see, it is gameplay captured on the Wii. Just dated just over 1 week prior to the game's cancellation. The following is a trailer recreating the PC game trailer that was created by Free Radical in November of 2008. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. While we, the Free Radical archive community, intend to mod the game to change it, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Yeah, they have their Discord community, and they're going to continue trying to fix it up. Dude, a 36-second intro is wild. Is it coming? And copyright struck. So they actually have work in progress footage of the game running on the Wii. For one, I don't know about you guys, I remember that all of those Wii ports, they were all garbage. Because even back in 2006 when the Wii launched, it was extremely popular, but it was super, super underpowered compared to the other consoles out there. So it just was nowhere near as powerful as it should have been. But yeah, there's some pop in and stuff like that. But all of these Wii ports always looked way worse than their primary console counterparts. But this is footage. This is footage of the canceled Star Wars Battlefront 3 game that never was. And it's really too bad. You know, I feel like just now Disney is starting to kind of figure out their piece or their games once more. Like we've had the Star Wars Jedi games, which are pretty solid when they work. We've had other things like Indiana Jones, of course, which is another Lucasfilm project. But it's taken them a long time, and even then there's a lot of growing pains involved with it. But this was like the golden age. They had a lot of really good stuff, and then Bob Iger had to come in and ruin it all, because that's just what Bob Iger does, you know? He comes in, he destroys, he conquers, as he do. But it's just crazy to see. It's crazy to see. And again, like this whole thing with Bob Iger, I remember we looked on stream, Bob Iger, let me see if I can find the original articles. There was this one from 2016. For example, 4 months ago, Walt Disney boasted loudly about the strength of its self-published video game unit. Tuesday, the company shut it down. The abrupt decision caught many in the industry off guard, especially given the company's announcement in December that the latest installment of Disney Infinity had quickly top the $200 million sales mark and become the leader in the so-called Toys to Life category, surpassing Activision's Skylanders and Warner Brothers' Lego Dimensions. But in fact, the writing has been on the wall for a while. A month ago, Disney pledged to make Disney Infinity 3.0 its biggest game ever via DLC, but the underlying message many walked away with was the company had decided not to make a new version of the game this year. The previous month, Disney had announced it would skip E3, the video game industry's annual trade show. Toys to Life, I forgot that was a thing. Skylanders, that was another big thing. Yeah, there were so many things in this era. That business is changing, is a changing business, the gaming industry specifically. And we did not have enough confidence in the business in terms of it being stable enough to stay in it from a self-publishing perspective. We knew going in that there would be lots of risk with this product, and the fact that we did so well initially gave us confidence to continue with it. The truth of the matter is that the risk that we cited at the beginning when we went into this caught up with us. Basically, Bob didn't think it was worth the risk. Didn't think it was worth the risk. He thought, it's going to be easier if we just pump out more increases to theme park ticket prices, if we pump out more Marvel movies, if we pump out more Star Wars spin-offs, let's just do that. And he did that, and it worked for a little while, and Disney has been struggling, let's just say, for a little while. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. You know, if you look back, they have pretty much stagnated since that era. So like 2015, 2016, this is when they would have shut down all their gaming division stuff. And you can see today they are trading at damn near the same price point. And, you know, they peaked right around the era post-COVID, but quickly plummeted. This was mostly because Bob Iger came in. Bob Chapek was ruining everything, and Bob Iger came in, fixed it up a little bit, and then it's back to where it was. But, yeah, I mean, Disney's had a rough go of it. Had a rough go of it, but I think giving up on the games sector was a big blunder, because imagine what Disney could be doing now if they had built out their game studios, if they had continued to put out really high quality stuff that for a lot of us defined our childhoods, but they gave up on it because it wasn't worth the risk to them. You know, it's a little crazy. Chapek was a scapegoat. In general, I think the company was going to collapse in terms of stock price no matter what in the post-COVID era. And you're right, Chapek was like an easy person to blame. But part of it was that Chapek had a few fundamental presuppositions with the company that I think were false and damaging to the brand. He had a couple of pet projects that he tried to push. He wanted to increase profitability of the parks, but that priced a lot of people out and did a lot of brand damage, making people feel like Disney was just the soulless corporation that Bob Iger had tried really hard to shield the company from in terms of criticism. So I think, yeah, he was a scapegoat, but he also was kind of a deserving scapegoat. You know, Chapek did greenlight Deadpool and Wolverine. Yeah, that's true. But Chapek also was responsible for many billions of dollars of wasted money overhauling parts of the parks that didn't go anywhere. I think, you know, he was one of the driving forces behind letting the Star Wars Hotel be a thing, and that ended up losing tons of money and all sorts of stuff like that. Yeah. Bob Paycheck. Yeah, I mean, the dude, I'm sure, made tons of money, but I think the fact that they had such a quick turnaround where they handed the keys to Bob Chapek, and then the company starts dropping in value because everybody's like, wait, this free money during COVID is not going to continue forever. And then they panic and pivot off, and they're like, okay, never mind, everything sucks. It's his fault. But I think what we've seen is that Bob Iger also doesn't really know what the solution is. He doesn't have like the ultimate answers, though he was kind of acting like he did. Lots of industries had that problem, it seems. Yeah, I mean, gaming also suffered from it a lot. They got big blank checks because debt was free, so everybody finance themselves out the ass with crazy expansions and greenlighting new projects and stuff, even though the ideas weren't there. They just ran with it because they were like, "Yeah, why not? It can't possibly flop if we spend $400 million on it. There's no way." Luke, theme park stream when? I don't know. I was asking Nikki if she wanted to go to Disney World over like the summer. Take the boys. But she was saying like, I think I'd more appreciate like if we redid our cabinets in the kitchen. It's like, that's such a mom thing to say. That's such a mom thing to say. You know, it's just funny. I also like, I don't think we're at this house super long term, so I also don't think like it makes sense to do too much work on the house. Like we're we're finishing the basement fully. So half the basement's finished. We're finishing the other half. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how the year plays out, if we do that or not. Real quick news segment. Okay. Got to get through this because we got George joining us soon. And then I'll catch up on super chats. Okay, guys? I'll catch up on it real quick. So the CEO of Microsoft, a funny little fella named Satya Nadella. He is a wicked smart and very capable businessman, not just because he looks like an elf, but also just because he is extremely sharp. I mean, you don't run a multi-trillion-dollar company unless you are pretty sharp. I mean, just imagine how good you have to be for shareholders to entrust you with a ship that big. You know, that's pretty insane. Pretty insane. But he was recently on an interview panel, and he talked about Xbox and their ad strategy and everything else that they're doing. And, you know, he's just said it very, very plainly what their strategy is. And I'll just let him say it for himself.
And the love for gaming. If I think about it, right, we chose the secular growth category in entertainment, which we think is gaming, and said, let's double down on it. And it's been a passion for Microsoft ever since. In fact, I think Flight Simulator launched before Windows or Office even. And so it's like one of the longest franchises in this company. And so we said, let's take that joy of gaming everywhere. And that's why even these ads with Xbox now, where we are redefining what it means to be an Xbox fan, it's about being able to enjoy Xbox on all your devices. So our strategy with Activision content now is in full force. We feel fantastic about the progress we've made. And more importantly, I think on long term, as a company, we can bring the best of AI innovation, cloud innovation, console innovation, PC innovation to build the best games that can be enjoyed by gamers everywhere.
Translation. He said growth, which is like a trigger word. I mean, immediately when you hear that, it's like, oh, that's why. Gaming is a massively growing industry. At least it has been historically for the last handful of years. Really the last like 10, 20 years. It's been growing like crazy, and it continues to do so. Though at last year or two, it's been slowed, but it's probably more like, you know, when the chart's going, I'm trying to do it at the right angle. When the chart's going up like crazy, there will be a couple years where it maybe plateaus a little and then it keeps going up, or maybe even some years where it dips a little and then it keeps going up. That's normal. I think that's where we're at right now, which is why we've seen so many layoffs and stuff like that. But gaming is a huge opportunity in the tech space, and it's an opportunity that like Apple, besides the App Store, has like no interest in. They've tried to do some stuff where they're like, oh, look, you can play AC Mirage on your iPad. That's about the extent of what they've done, you know, when it comes to trying to break into the gaming market. So Apple, which is one of their primary competitors in the tech space, they are just like totally MIA. Google tried to do some stuff when it came to, crap, what did they call it? What was their freaking cloud gaming thing called Stadia. They tried to do with Stadia for a little bit, and that went nowhere. And Amazon, they have their cloud gaming thing as well that nobody can ever remember the name of. I honestly don't know a single person who's ever used it. So like there's just not a lot of competition in the gaming space. Luna, that's it. Thank you guys. There's just not a lot of competition there. And so Satya, being a very capable businessman, was like, hey, this is a huge opportunity. We come in there with buckets of cash. We expand our Xbox platform. We build it out. We become one of the biggest distributors of gaming software in the world pretty much overnight. Easy peasy, easy money. And that's what he's doing. Really not that complicated. What's been interesting is that people really they seem to struggle with the idea that Microsoft has changed how they view the games industry and their role and place in it. For a long time, basically 20 years, it was PlayStation versus Xbox. PC is sort of its own thing. Nintendo is sort of its own thing, but fundamentally it's PlayStation versus Xbox, and it's the console war through and through. And that's how it was for about 20 years. Nowadays, that's not how Xbox views it. Maybe PlayStation views it that way. Xbox doesn't. Xbox is like, yeah, we've been losing that fight, so why would we keep going back into the cage when we keep getting the crap beat out of us? Let's make our own game and do our own thing. And that's what they're doing. They're going to start trying to focus on distributing software first and foremost, using things like Game Pass to guarantee consistent revenues instead of relying on big spikes intermittently, which are very high risk, high reward. It just makes more sense for Xbox and for Microsoft to do it that way, especially because Microsoft, that's how they handle the rest of their business. Microsoft is not like a multi-trillion-dollar company because they sell the best laptops or because they sell the best desktops or tablets or whatever. They are a multi-trillion-dollar company because they distribute software. And they distribute it all over the world, both on individual levels with PCs and industrial, like commercial levels with servers and all the software that they run for that. Everything is run through those Microsoft platforms. And that's why they're so big. That's because they distribute software. That's where they make their money. That's what they're good at. And that's what they're doing with Xbox. So their whole approach is to now stop fighting a game that they have struggled to make any ground in for years and years and years, and kind of move the goalpost. So instead of trying to win the fight over which company has the larger percentage of consoles on the market and console sales, they're now moving it and they're like, okay, well, let's now compete based on who has the most revenue in gaming, who has the most profitability in gaming with microtransactions and other things, who is the most capable distributor of software, regardless of platform. And that is a game that Microsoft/Xbox, I think, absolutely can start winning very easily. Granted, when you start with $70 billion, $77 billion if you count ZeniMax, like, you'd better make some progress. You would hope. But that's where they're at, is they came in there, they spent a crap ton of money, and now they are seeing significant returns on that investment already. But it is fundamentally a different game than they used to play 5-10 years ago. And that's something where I think Xbox, like the Xbot crowd, the hardcore fans that make Xbox part of their identity, those people are frustrated and thoroughly confused because they're like, no, Xbox is supposed to like have exclusives now and finally screw over PlayStation and have these exclusives that only we get to play, because for so many years PlayStation had exclusives we couldn't play. Now we have those, but you're sending them over to PlayStation anyways. And those people are frustrated. On PlayStation, they're like, oh, what losers. They have to come over here and sell their games to us anyways. And they're looking at it foundationally through the wrong lens. Microsoft is trying something different, and it's a game I think they can win, but it's not the game that they've played before, and it's not the game that PlayStation's playing or anybody else is playing. But it is a game that I think will see them gain a lot of financial stability over the next few years in the gaming sector, especially if Game Pass continues to grow, which apparently it is in the shadow of Black Ops 6. Apparently that did some crazy numbers for them. But It's continuing to be claimed by other people like Jez Corden through Windows Central. The Xbox won't have exclusives going forward. Specifically, what he said was, quote, Xbox won't have exclusives going forward. Everything is a timed exclusive at most. If some games are exclusive, though, it's going to be incidental at best. The case-by-case argument is by and large going to be multi-plat timed and with maybe a few very few outliers. And responding to a user who said they didn't believe that Xbox's upcoming Fable game could come to PlayStation, Corden wrote, that game was monstrously expensive. It might not be day one, multi-platform day one, but it'll come with the current plan in place, IMO. And this is something that, I mean, the writing is on the wall, like you can see in this picture of Indiana Jones. It's on the wall. You cannot spend $200-300 million on a game in 2024 and make that back with a console exclusive. It just doesn't really work that way anymore. There are a few rare exceptions, like if you had a big freaking, exclusive for the PS5, you could do that. If you are kind of a separate group like Nintendo and you have Mario Kart 9, yeah, that can work because those are literal console sellers. But those games are also going to sell 25-30 million copies. I mean, how many copies did Smash Bros. Sell? It's something stupid. It's like an insane number. Yeah. No, that's the franchise. I don't want the franchise. I want the game, like the actual... As of September, okay, September 2021, but I want like modern. This one says Smash Ultimate as of a year ago has sold over 31 million copies. If you sell 31 million copies, yeah, you can spend as much money on it as you want. Then you're okay. Then you get a pass. But even games like God of War Ragnarok, for example, that was a huge exclusive that was it was cross-generational. It also launched on PS4 because they needed more than just the one little platform of PlayStation 5, in order to get enough people to potentially buy it to break even. You still will see some console exclusives, but even what you're seeing now is PlayStation very openly bringing those exclusives to PC later. Because it's money on the table. Like, I don't think PlayStation's going to be bringing their games to Xbox. I just don't think that's going to be anything they're that interested in. But I do think you'll see it come to PC, and you will see them continue doing that because it's just games are so freaking expensive in the modern day. You need to be able to do that. I mean, again, to put it in perspective, The Witcher 3, that game cost $81 million to make. 81 million. Okay. The budget was apparently 32 million plus 35 million in marketing. And then there was some overspend in various spots as well. But that's what we're talking about. Okay. To make that game today is probably $200 to $400 million. Okay. So yeah, and that's only 3.5 years that they technically spent working on it. So when we say the industry is different today, it is. It just is. It's fundamentally different. And there's no magic shortcuts. There's no other solution than you either make the game in less time so it'll be smaller. You pay your developers less or have less of them, but that's not going to help with quality. Or your game's just going to be expensive to make and you just need to sell more copies and maybe more DLC or, premium upgrades for pre-orders or ultimate editions or whatever. You just have to get more money out of more gamers to pay for it. It's really not that much more complicated than that. And for something like Xbox games, they have Game Pass and they're hoping a lot of people sign up for Game Pass to play these games when they launch and that they keep their subscription. But then on the flip side, they hope that when it comes to PlayStation, people buy it for the full price anyways, and they just do it that way. And then they get the best of both worlds. They get the PlayStation gamers who are used to paying full price for games, and then they get the Xbox gamers who are used to subscriptions to get into games. And then PC gamers will basically have the choice of choosing which one they want. They can buy the game through Steam or the Xbox Store for full price and just own it, or they can go and sign up for Game Pass on PC and play it that way. It's fundamentally just meeting players where they are with the expectations that they have for purchasing a game or acquiring it, and then just calling it good. Just being everywhere for everybody at the same time and distributing it that way. And I don't think it's a bad option. 3 years is kind of fast. Yeah, I mean, it probably could have been pumped out in like 6 months, or they probably needed an extra 6 months because it was pretty buggy at launch. But yeah, I mean, games used to be pumped out pretty quick. Or executives take less money. I mean, the problem is executives are compensated with stock options that pay out over scheduled periods of time. It's not like they're receiving cash payouts that are in the millions and millions of dollars. That's why every time you hear like an executive pay plan discussed, it'll say they received a compensation package worth $30 million or $10 million or whatever it is. That does not mean they got a deposit to their bank account of $10 million. So it's not the same as like, oh, they got a check for that, or that was part of the dev process. That's not how those payouts work. It's a fundamentally different way of being paid than 99.9% of people on planet Earth. But I don't know how it works. I'm dumb. No, you're fine. Like I said, 99.9% of people on Earth don't get paid that way, so they just don't know. But when people hear like Elon Musk is now worth, like I saw that one video where it was Jeff Bezos, maybe in perspective. It was a video of Jeff Bezos walking around. And they had the like tally. Oh yeah, here it is. So they have like this guy standing next to him, and they're showing the amount of money that his net worth is increasing by in this period of time to show how ridiculously wealthy he is. That this guy, as he stands there with his salary, it's basically he made 25 cents in that period of time. He's already made 8,500, 9,000, 9,500, 10,000. He's making crazy amounts of money. So people, when they see this type of thing, which I don't personally know if this is calculated correctly, but for demonstration purposes, it kind of gets the job done. But when people see this, they assume that like, oh, so at the end of the day or at the end of the month or in 2 weeks, Jeff is going to get a deposit to his bank account for that amount. That's not what that means. What Jeff has is Jeff owns like 13% of Amazon or something like that. And so because of that, as the stock price increases, his net worth increases. But when the stock price drops, his net worth decreases. It's like when Mark Zuckerberg, he owns Meta, of course, or what used to be Facebook. And there was a really, really bad day for Meta like 3, maybe 4 years ago, where they lost, like he lost something insane, like 60, 70 billion dollars of net worth in a day, like, or in a week or something. He lost tens upon tens of billions of dollars of net worth in a day. That didn't mean his bank account decreased at all. It just meant the thing he had was worth less. Like if that statue over there, if you told me that's worth $5,000, cool. If tomorrow you say now it's only worth 3,000, it didn't change me. Like my life hasn't changed at all. My accounts haven't changed. You just told me that thing I have is worth less. That's how these executives are compensated, is they own things that are worth a certain amount of money, and they can take loans out against them. They can do things like that, or sell the shares, of course. But it's not like they're just receiving deposits. It's not that simple. So, you know, some people will just say, oh, well, in order to make these games more affordable or lower the budgets, just pay the executives less. And in principle, yeah, that's true. But also the executives are being compensated based on stock options for the company's performance. So like they're not, the budget isn't factoring in a $10 million payment to the executive. That's just not how it works. The budget is independent of that. And the budget is a function of cash flows. The executive's compensation is a function of the stock's performance, the company's performance more broadly. So they're siloed. They're in different areas. They're different things. Yeah, this is interesting. Apparently Indiana Jones. I guess we can do this. New segment. So a player accidentally discovered a bug in Indiana Jones where they got it permanently locked to third person. And, you know, the camera pulls out to third person every once in a while. And, you know, when you use your whip or when you climb up something or, you know, during transitions between different sequences. But they actually got the camera to stick and remain in third person, at least for a little bit. They have, you know, a small little snippet of gameplay here showing it. But it makes you pause and go like, oh, so this is what it would have looked like if we had gotten third person Indiana Jones. Frankly, to me, after I've been playing it a lot more, I think that would have been better personally. You know, I was somebody who was saying, if you're not going to play Indiana Jones because it's first person, that's a stupid reason not to play it. Because like the game could still be amazing. It's just first person because Machine Games makes first person games. That's just what they've done historically. So that's what they're comfy with. I can understand that. But I think playing such an iconic character as Indiana Jones, to look through his eyes is like a little weird. I would rather it if the camera were separated out, and a lot of other things like the bigger set pieces, the stealth mechanics and stuff like that, I think just works better in third person versus first. But this is just like a fun little thing to see what might have been. Who knows? Maybe they'll have a patch or an update one day and they'll bring third person to the game, and maybe they do that because they clearly have it basically working, at least sort of. We don't see much of it, but they have some version of third person working in the game. So I don't think it's necessarily impossible. Mods will definitely make it. Yeah, probably. But an interesting little development. I don't know. Do you guys think it was really necessary? Do you guys think like third person would have made it significantly better? Looks better. This looks way better. Red Dead Jones. Yes, it looks almost finished. Looks a bit awkward. Yeah, I mean, it's all the movement is based on the camera being in like the mouth of the player character. They have the model generated for shadow casting and reflections, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't designed and they didn't intend for you to play through the whole game in third person, but they do have like a camera there being tracked so they can use it during transitions and stuff. But it does give you just a little taste of what the game would have been like if it were third person, of what it would have looked like. I think it would have worked very well. I kind of wish we would have gotten it, but oh well. Oh well, I would have loved to toggle. I mean, that would be the easiest fix. I understand it is not that easy because when you go third person versus first person, you got to remember every little thing you do needs clear animations. Everything from opening those locks needs to have the camera move up so you can see the lock and you can equip the different items you need. If you're investigating environments, which was another big part of Indiana Jones, imagine all the pieces of paper laying on the ground or this or that. They would need to have a way to clearly communicate that to a player from a third person perspective. So it might need to glow more or, you know, pulsate more. Of course, if you just toggle between kind of like a Fallout 3, New Vegas, Skyrim kind of game where you can just press the button and it goes back to first person, that would be an easy fix. But it's not as simple as just, well, now just put the camera behind you. Every little thing you do needs to be reworked to work in third person. So it's not that easy, but I do think amazingly enough, like seeing this kind of fulfills the idea like, okay, yeah, I think this could have been really cool if we had gotten it. But I think the other probably reason beyond their expertise in first person, the other reason they probably didn't want to do it is just frankly because they wanted to differentiate this game from Uncharted. They didn't want people to go into it expecting Uncharted or thinking it was going to be Uncharted but with Indiana Jones. And going first person really clearly showed this isn't what that is. This is something else. And that was a good choice, because if you go into Indiana Jones, The Great Circle, expecting Uncharted, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to have a bad time. But if you go into it expecting something different, you can have a really good time with it. It's just based on where you start from. But yeah, fun little development. If you're wondering what indie looks like in third person, there you go. There you go. Okay. Let's see. I have some other big things we were going to get through, try to get through. Like there's a whole Witcher 4 interview with the game director and executive producer of The Witcher 4. And I was going to look through this, but I don't think we have the time. Don't think we have the time. You know what? Honestly, like if we were to do this interview on our channels, me and Jor, I think we'd get even bigger view counts and stuff. So maybe we reach out to these guys, see if they want to do an interview with us. That'd be cool, right? How many different cups do I have? Not enough. What was my game of the year, Luke? I'm waiting to finish Indie before I confirm. I'm also trying to get deeper into PoE 2. But right now, it's still Metaphor Refantasio. I understand why some people it's not for them. But for me, oh, baby. Love it. I just don't like Indiana Jones that much. I can understand why some people would really dislike it, and it took me a little while to get into it, frankly. But the more I get into it, granted, I've been having a ton of fun going through the Egyptian part of the game. But I understand why some people might not like it, but I'm liking it the more I play it. It's sort of an acquired taste. Ronan tagged me in this. Sick of the woke, non-conventional, attractive male video game protagonists. Take Joel from The Last of Us. I've used filters to remove his aging skin, DEI chin, woke wrinkles, and graying hair. Now he looks like strong, masculine, and attractive. It is. She also made Kratos. Oh man, I've had a few requests for Kratos. I've changed this grumpy old bald man into a young, dare I say, sexy womanizer. Nice head of hair, perfect skin, and a cheeky smile women will swoon over. It is a little funny when you just kind of turn the tables and you're like, okay. Because you better believe if there was a game that had like a mid-40s, weathered female as a protagonist, Jolene or something, and like she had been through an apocalypse and looked like it, like Joel does, they would be like, oh man, they're uglifying her, making her all ugly, and they would demand this, even though that makes no sense at all. It's just silly. Same with Kratos. Like, imagine just flipping it around. It doesn't make any sense. It's outrageous. You can always usually tell how ridiculous an argument is if you just turn the tables a little bit. If you take it out of one context and rework it, you can learn a lot about how sound the argument is. It's I guess you could say reductio ad absurdum. It's pretty absurd. They turned Kratos into a Bollywood actor. Yeah. Oh man, let me catch up on these real quick. Mr. Rage, thank you again for that one. Keatis, thank you for that 5. If it hadn't been for Cotton Eye, I'd have been married long time ago. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? I don't know where he came from. Somewhere. Later Storm, thank you for the 2. Did you see Peggy gave Balatro an 18 rating? Yeah, there's a whole story on it. Balatro dev swings at Peggy for rating it 18 plus because of its evil playing cards. Jokes that he should have added microtransactions like EA Sports FC to lower that rating to 3 plus. Which is, it's true. It is patently ridiculous to give this game an 18 plus rating while EA has like actual gambling and stuff in some of their games and they are totally fine. It's patently absurd to think that Balatro should be treated like some sort of horrible adults only corrupting force. It's pretty ridiculous. I mean, there's even the story, I'm not sure if it's confirmed or not, but there was a story going around where the developer of Balatro, which I learned at the Game Awards, apparently it is Balatro, not Balatro. It's, you put the emphasis on the first syllable, which I didn't realize, but apparently Balatro is what it's supposed to be called. But anyway, the dev said that he considered putting in like microtransactions, maybe the ability to pay 50 cents or $1 to continue a run that was going really well, or to get a few more Joker cards to boost your deck or whatever. But when he had his friends and family try the game, it was so addicting that he was like, I can't do that. This could ruin people's lives. I'm not going to do it. So he chose not to do it, which is pretty funny. That despite that, the rating board for Peggy is like, nope, Peggy 18, because there are evil playing cards. But you can have straight up gambling or like gotcha stuff in your games and they're totally fine with it. Like, I don't have a problem if there's gambling, or if you really love pulling, doing polls of card games and stuff. Like, I like Magic the Gathering. I totally get that. That can be really fun. Nothing quite beats the high of opening a pack and seeing a really good card. I get that. If you're an adult, spend your money how you wish. That's cool. But to pretend like Balatro is somehow evil and corrupting, but those games are fine for kids, that's pretty ridiculous. That's pretty insane. That's pretty stupid, frankly. Okay, let me continue catching on this. The keymaker, the TGA was PS coded. Any idea when the next Xbox showcase is? There are rumors of one in January. I don't think I'm allowed to say more than that, but there's rumors of something in January. When it lands, I'm not sure, but I think we see something in January. They have a lot to show. They have a lot of big stuff next year. So I think it's very, very reasonable to expect something in like mid-January, because you got to remember, a lot of the devs are, or a lot of the people at Microsoft are going to be going on vacation after the holidays and through New Year's, and then they get back in the office maybe like January 6th, 7th, 8th, something like that, and then they spend a few days getting ready, and then they do the big event. I think that that's a reasonable timeline. If like mid-January, whatever that would be, like maybe like the 17th, or maybe even like sometime between the 20th and 24th. A showcase in there, I think, would make a lot of sense. Where was I? Oh yeah, Kratos into a Bollywood actor. You didn't know you needed it, right? Farbod. Excuse me. I don't mind playing female characters. Games like The Last of Us and Plague Tale are some of my favorites, but for The Witcher, I just wish it wasn't female. Am I a bad guy? Yep, banned. No, I'm kidding. No, anybody's allowed to like whatever they like. My wife, for example, she, call her a bigot or whatever. My wife didn't want to play The Witcher 3 for a long time because she likes playing games where she can either make her own character or play as a female character. That's just her preference. She finds it tough to get into a role play mindset when she's playing a dude. That's true for some female gamers. It's true for some male gamers. It's true for some horse gamers. I don't know, but like it's true for people that some people just have trouble getting immersed if they don't relate to the character. Other people have a much easier time with it. I'm able to play games with male or female characters, and it doesn't make a difference, a lick of difference to me. But as for The Witcher, I can understand how maybe it's like, oh, I was wishing they would do a selectable character or something else. I think that's a fine feeling to have. That doesn't mean you're a bad person or anything. It's just your preference. That's totally fine. But I also, just to offer a bit of encouragement, I don't think that this is going to be like a negative. I think Ciri as a protagonist for a game makes a lot of sense. In The Witcher 3, it's signaled a ton. They already alluded to pretty much settling on Ciri as a protagonist a decade ago. So this was always kind of the plan, and they've had clear ideas of what they want to do with her as the protagonist for a long time. So I don't think it's an indication that the game will be bad or anything. It's just that's the choice they chose to go with. Yeah. Didn't CDPR literally say the next Witcher game would allow or would be create your own Witcher though? No, I don't think so, because I don't think that was ever the plan. The recent interviews that they've put out was or have suggested that they decided on Ciri back at the end of The Witcher 3. Like this was the plan for a very long time. But if there are interviews, or if there was an interview or something where they alluded to that, then maybe, you know, that's worth talking about. But I don't remember seeing anything like that. I remember it speculated a bunch. People were wondering if that's what they were going to do. There's also discussions of the other projects, and maybe that's where wires got crossed, because they're working on a lot of games at the same time. So maybe, you know, they're working on a custom character for one of their other games, and people got that confused that they meant for this particular Witcher game you were going to get that. Maybe that's where the confusion came. But yeah, like the multiplayer thing. But it's just what happens when you have a lot of pots on the stove. Sometimes you forget which ingredients you put in which one. You know, it's easy to get lost, to forget them. But okay. Do I have time for any of these other ones? I'm not sure. So my thing for that one, the chances for GTA 6 failing is actually higher than Luke finishing Metaphor. It's funny. I was actually just talking to, well, it was a few weeks ago. I don't know if he actually finished it yet, but I was talking to my buddy Corey, who's also really into Metaphor, and he said, I'm at like the final moment. I'm at the final moment. He's like, and I'm not sure if I want to actually do the final quest line, because I don't want it to be over. So I think I'm just going to leave it for a week or two and maybe go back to it. Because weirdly, if I finish the game, I feel like it's over and it will always be over. But if I don't finish the game, then it's always there ready for me, you know, something like that. I have the same issue when finishing things. Yeah, I think especially games like Persona, like Samaya says, or Metaphor, like any of these big ones, or for me, like Three Houses. What the hell is the primary name? Something Three Houses. Fire Emblem. Couldn't remember Fire Emblem for some reason. Fire Emblem Three Houses. I love that game. Great game. But that was also one where I was like, I got to that end point and I was like, I don't want it to be over. Because you spend so much time playing it that you're just like, I just don't want it to be over. Because how long was Fire Emblem? Main story 50 hours, main inside 75. Completion is 211. I think for me, it must have been for me like 70, 60, 70, something like that. I think for mine. But yeah, when you spend that much time with a game, the end is like, I don't want it to be over. Yeah, Fire Emblem. That's one that needs more respect. Needs more respect. Arthur. I still want to go back to Cyberpunk and do a third full run. I mean, the updates they've added are really cool. They've added a bunch of stuff. Even recently, they did that big patch. Yeah, I was the same. Would play The Witcher a quest a week at the end just to make it longer. Yeah, that's one thing you can always tell. It's a common question is, if you could wipe your memory of one game, what would it be to re-experience it from scratch? I think probably the most popular answers are things like Elden Ring, The Witcher 3, Red Dead 2, or like Breath of the Wild. Because Breath of the Wild back in like 2017, that was on another level. Last of Us, yeah, that's a good one. Persona, that's a good one. AC Odyssey, that's a lot to forget. Ghost of Tsushima, that's a good one. Outer Wilds. Yeah, that's a clever one, because that's one tied up in mystery a lot. So yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Hellblade, Skyrim, Fallout New Vegas. That's the thing though. This is what complicates it, though. And then we'll adjourn because we're going to hop on the podcast with Jor in a minute. That's the question, is if you forgot, say, New Vegas, and then you replayed it today, would you feel the same way about it if you played it today for the first time versus playing it back in the day for the first time? I'm not so sure. You know, because for its time, stunning. It's like LA Noire. You know, if you wiped your memory of LA Noire and you played it back in the day, and so it's really nostalgic for you, if you replayed it today, it probably wouldn't feel as powerful as it did back then, you know? Some games are immune to that. Like, I think if you wiped your memory of Breath of the Wild or Red Dead or something, those I think would still be very impactful. But, you know, for one, because Red Dead still graphically holds up, and Breath of the Wild is sort of, its art style kind of makes it independent of that element. But Pokemon, yeah, I don't think that I would think highly of the Ezio trilogy if I finished it or played it fresh today. Yeah. That's the thing. Times change expectations and standards, and that's okay. That means the industry is moving forward, but it is an interesting consideration. It's like, if I didn't have any nostalgic bias at all towards that game, would I still feel that way about it? I don't know. Still good games, but I think the key is good for their times. Especially good for their times. But, okay, here's what we're going to do, fam. Jor Raptor, the man, the myth, the legend. He is back from his vacay, from his trip, and he's ready to hang out with us once more. So, we're going to end this stream, make a new event, do that stream with Jor for the podcast, catch up on all sorts of stuff. It's going to be fantastic. So, I greatly appreciate all of you who joined me today on this stream, but I will make a new event for the podcast with Jor that'll go up in just a minute once this stream ends. So make sure to hop over there. Just go to Luke Stevens' live channel after you subscribe. Go to the channel and check the live event, and it should be right there, okay? It'll be just a couple minutes while I set it up. But I will see you guys in just a minute. Back with Jor Raptor, okay? See you on the other side. Much love, everybody. See you in a second. Bye-bye.